Hello and welcome once again to the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about presumably our favorite genre of video games. I realize I say that every week and I don't know if it's actually true, but ostensibly it is. It's true for me and everyone else has gone along with it.
The more you say it, the more it's true, right? Like it's like you
Yes.
just have to convince yourself of it. It's like a hypnotic state of things.
Yes, fake it until you make it.
Yes.
My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me today, I've got a full house here. Let's put it that way. Let me go through all my allies here today. We've got George Foster.
Hello, everyone.
Joshua Torres.
Am I really your ally, or are we just best buddies?
I thought so. Did I have it wrong?
I mean,
I'm disappointed.
we could use best buddies instead.
I had it misconstrued. Okay. we have Jess Reyes. Welcome back.
Again, nice to be back.
Adam Vitale.
Hi.
James Galizio.
The slew of video games is almost over. Soon a respite.
And Chow Min Woo.
How's it going?
So the dog days of August are slowly coming to an end, or right, I guess, in the middle of it, in the back half. It's been a slow time for games, at least in certain respects. And lots of things to look forward to, a few things that we've gotten little tastes of in terms of demos, in terms of more release dates coming up. We're almost there, guys. I was told that when Madden releases, then we know that things are going to be looking up at that point. So that's a good benchmark that I never thought of, like the Groundhog Day of video game release schedule. So hold on, we're almost there.
Yeah, I opened up Steam one day and I saw Madden there. I'm like, oh, Madden is still a thing. That's right. So
wait, on Steam? It's on PC?
Yeah, yep.
Oh,
it's on PC. So I saw. I was like, oh wow, there's a Madden here.
The last time I played Madden, I think, was like 2010. It's been a long time.
Is Madden RPG?
I mean,
It has stats.
I remember hearing that both like Madden and FIFA has like story mode is almost like an RPG because of like how you progress your character.
All you need is damage numbers, and then we're good to go. We can make the excuse.
Yeah, I would have someone like tackle someone, and then like this little 100 floats above the body.
Whatever that means.
I mean, staff chat says everything these days is an RPG.
True.
I mean, you can make that argument, and I've seen like story mode clips of Madden where they have like dialogue choices, and it's like, oh shit, we should be covering this. That's not sincere. Please don't talk about Madden on this podcast ever again. It's my fault. Why did I do this? But yeah, we've had a
what
few...
Madden is.
Yeah, George, what is Madden for our British friends?
Sports.
Mhm.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's someone more cultured. I don't know a thing.
Man, if only we had boss dude Alex on. He knows about the American footballs.
He is a weird. I don't know you.
He is weird.
I just add this sentence there. A British man who loves football almost more than anything except arcade cabinets. Anyways, he's a good guy. We've had a few like cool events in the last week that have been interesting to look forward to in the doldrums of actual releases. We had the big Pokemon Presents Tuesday or Wednesday, which talked about the upcoming releases of Pokemon Legends Arceus and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Skyrim was somehow announced again. We'll get to that. Todd, how do you keep getting away with this? We and then we got a few other cool things. We had a couple updates on Genshin Impact, a new look at Black Myth Wukong. We'll get into that. But also in the last week, we finally got the live public version of the Tales of Arise demo. So we had talked about this game in previous podcasts because we have been lucky enough to have some of our staff get early access to demos or preview events. And George is one of them. So we have him here today as well. And then we've also had the public demo, which I know a few of us here have had a chance to sink their teeth into. Some of us new to the Tales series and some of us not so new. So I guess we'll kind of start off with that. So I believe the two here that have played the demo have been Jess and Josh. One of them is new to it, and one of them has played a lot. So I'm going to start, I think, with Jess, because you have not played a Tales game before. So I have no idea what you take away from playing a demo like this when you don't know the series. But obviously you saw something in it that interested you to play the demo. So just walk me through like what your experience with it was.
Okay, so I mean, I did have the background of knowing that Tales is basically like a huge JRPG series, I feel like. it feels kind of like a sin to have not played any of the games up until
Well,
now.
let me just for
But-
context, like for some of us, it's like Tales is something. It almost feels like it's always has been there. Like we know what it is, and it's like always has been like the staple thing that's like this ever present entity in JRPGs. So it's hard for me to like, oh yeah, people with like a fresh perspective looking at this might have a completely different take compared to me or Josh. So like going into it with fresh eyes, how do you perceive Tales?
Honestly, when I was looking at it, it kind of like I was comparing it to Scarlet Nexus most of the time because that's the latest one that JRPG that I
Right.
played through entirely, and I couldn't help but think like there are certain things that I missed. Like for example, you have a lot of allies, so I kind of miss the just pressing the button twice to switch to the other ones instead of holding it down. There's also the cutscene stuff, which it kind of comes across as a manga thing, which I wasn't sure if I was a fan of.
You mean the skits?
The skits, yeah.
So skits, Josh, what are skits?
Oh boy, what are skits entails? So sometimes, as you saw Jess in the demo, like when you're wandering around, there'll be a little minuscule like topic thing at the at a corner of the screen, usually at like the bottom right corner. And it'll say like a button, and it says like I don't know, like bees. And it's like press R1 to bees. What does this mean? So you press it, and it's like, and it brings up, as you saw, in Arise, it's like the manga panel, but in other past Tales games, it would bring up like kind of like an almost a VN type of like presentation when they're interacting with you, and then like it'll have these little square portraits in older Tales games where they have like these anime illustrated like 2D artwork kind of like reactions, and then you'll see like the windows go up and down as they're speaking, kind of showing that they're interacting with each other. That's how they kind of bring character and personality to like what you saw in Arise. Now that's all fully animated in Engine, but it's similar to that. So that's kind of what the skits are, just basically slice of life bits of like kind of fleshing out more lighthearted topics to one another.
Okay, I mean,
Sorry,
I did get
sorry.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
go
it's
for it.
fine. That's a good explanation. I didn't realize that it was something that continued throughout the series.
Yeah, it's a very popular thing that like longtime fans like they basically expect that out of every game. It's like
According
some
to
of the-
George, they got the idea from Yakuza.
Oh, really?
Oh my
No.
God.
That was for context from my experience. That was the first time I'd seen it. So
Right,
They-
because like have you touched or seen anything at all about like Yakuza 7 or Like a Dragon, Jess? Like any gameplay clips or anything?
Not exactly. Nope.
So when you're like in that game, when you're running around and there's like there's your 3 party members behind you, sometimes I'll just like mention something like you're in front of a barber shop, and then like you can kind of engage in that conversation with them further. It's like, oh, I kind of need a haircut and whatnot. So it's kind of like George says, like it's kind of just like more lighthearted topics. So if that's your first exposure to them, obviously that's what's going to be your common link rather than what's been traditionally been there. So anyway, continue your thought.
Okay, so other than that, I played with, I believe, Shion, right? The
The one with the
girl
gun
with
wielder, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the gun wielder. And I remember thinking that it's kind of I was thinking about how to juggle all the different teammates. Like, I'd actually asked Josh, like, so I feel like the fist fighter law, like I feel like it's his mission every time we get into a counter to kill himself as fast as possible.
You should play Berseria then. If you think he kills himself as fast as possible, you should play Berseria and not have the AI play the main character of that game.
Oh,
Man, that's
boy.
a terrible idea.
But yeah, I guess I'm grateful for like I learned that you can actually customize the different tactics for your different team members. Personally, I did like Xion because like you can be far away from the enemy, which helped me stay alive longer than I bet I would if I was playing a different character.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
obviously, unlike Scarlet Nexus with Tales, and this is common throughout the series, you can play as any of the characters. So they all have, a play set. Whereas Scarlet Nexus, you can only play as the 2 protagonists, and then the other characters you can kind of just get their like assistance in certain attacks or whatever. So it's always cool that Tales can do that, especially with this game has 6 playable characters, so that's 6 different playstyles. Even some games have
Yeah.
like 10 characters. That's kind of cool that you can have all these different playstyles to mess around with.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did
they're
think that was
pretty
interesting.
versatile here. Yeah. Were there any like were there any thoughts about like when you're wandering around the world? What console did you play this on?
Oh, I played it on a PS4.
How was the performance there on like was it a base PS4 or PS4 Pro?
No, it's just a regular PS4.
How
I mean,
how
I
did it work
thought
for you?
I feel like it worked out pretty well. Like it was easy for me to like wander around. Like I feel like it wasn't hard to figure out what to do, how to interact with the environment. You know, like picking up stuff,
Mhm.
running into
Yeah.
enemies. The enemies kind of reminded me more of like Pokemon because like you can run into them and then start encounter rather than just like in Scarlet Nexus they would kind of like run after you and start it right there.
Yeah, it's not like even old RPGs where you like it'll be a random encounter like by stepping on, like an empty tile or something. It's just there you can see them all there and just run into them.
Yeah, like I thought that was fair, and I mean it did look really good. I don't know what it looks like on the next gen consoles, but I feel like I was satisfied with how it was on mine.
Yeah, I've since I did try it on a base PS4, did it still give you that option in the to prefer frame rate or graphics mode in it?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. Because I
My
tried
guess
out the
is that it
PS5 version.
mixes a frame rate mode. I'm guessing for PS4, it's just like a base mode.
Yeah,
It is
I don't know if
interesting though.
they.
It's fascinating that we've had comparisons from the Tales series to Pokemon, to Scarlet Nexus, and to Yakuza. Like it's just weird because like I see them all. Like those all make sense to me. Like to me, I'm looking at they brought this idea from Vesperia or from Destiny or whatever. But like when you're new to the series and you have to pull from another population of games that you're familiar with, it's like I can see how it's kind of like Pokemon, or I can see how it's kind of like Yakuza because that was borrowing from other JRPGs. Fascinating to see that sort of stuff, and it makes sense. It's just different.
Yeah.
Um,
Did this make you curious in one? Are you curious to try the full game now that you tried the demo?
Yeah, I did plan on trying the full game, so I was like, okay, this is how it is originally. Like, I'm wondering, what else happens, because I feel like, I didn't really get much of the plot, even though I did kind of get a glimpse into each of the characters and their playstyles.
Yeah, that's the hard thing about this demo, right? Because like even then, I barely paid attention to this gets in the plot because all of this is like gonna prop up in the full game, and I kind of want the full context for these characters. So personally for me, I didn't feel like any attachment to the characters, just to this like very like small vertical slice of the game because I was just here to really test out like how does it play more so than like do I like these characters. So I'm like I'll get to that in the full game.
Yeah, that
the
makes
one-
sense.
That's like the one downside to an RPG demo, just by like design, not by design, but just how it is RPGs obviously are usually long games, very story driven, but also not just story, but like mechanics progress a lot from beginning to end, and trying to get like a vertical slice of that is hard enough. So you're only going to get a very small window into who these characters are without pretty much any context at all. So,
Yeah.
you
And
just
then
have to make assumptions or wait for the full game.
Yeah, and it's also like I guess this next question is like going to be very early because like you only played just a very little bit of this game. But I'm curious that if you end up liking Arise with its full game, are you curious to try out like past Tales games after that?
Honestly, I did want to play past Tales games. Like, I even asked some mutuals, like, okay, which ones are the best ones? 'Cause I already have Vesperia on my backlog.
Mhm.
Like I have that game actually, and I haven't played it yet because I
Right.
wanted to do co-op with a friend, but no one wants to play with me. And then there's also Tales of Abyss, which I think is the one that most people were like, "This is the best game. You need to play this one right now."
Did you have Vesperia? Go for
I'd
it.
say opinions are super varied on Tales. I
This
feel like
is
that's the sort
kind
of
of
thing.
mixed. Some people love it. Some people don't.
I was gonna say basically in general, if you ask 8 people what Tales games you should play, you'll get like 7 different answers. You might get 2 to agree. That's just my like feeling is that you're gonna get a ton of different like, no, actually, you gotta get a fan translation of Destiny 2 or something. Like I don't know. That's what Chow would suggest.
Jess mentioned co-op. I know some people are kind of upset that Arise does not have co-op because that has been a traditional thing in the series. Is that you could have a second player. Obviously, like one player would kind of do like the story progression stuff, but you could have a second player or even third and fourth player in battle. You could play as the other players. So I understand why some people are upset at that. but they wanted to be fully single player focused this time around.
Well, so two things. One, Jess, if somehow we were able to work out a schedule between like our crazy time zones, I would totally want to play Vesperia with you because I think
Oh,
like I
nice.
really like playing Tales co-op with people. So if we could somehow make it work, I'd be totally down to play it with you.
Oh wait, which time zone are you again?
I'm like Pacific time in the US.
Oh, okay, that's actually not that crazy, honestly.
Yes. Okay.
She's East Coast, so
Okay. Yeah. It's actually not crazy.
Okay, wait, one more thing.
Okay.
Is there one of the things I saw trending online was like people were really excited about the rat pigs.
The
pigs.
okay.
The rabbit
Yeah.
pigs.
Yeah, the rabbit pigs.
Yeah, Tails has a couple of different like mascot sort of characters. I wonder, does the game have bun wiggles?
I don't know. I haven't seen
Bun
them.
wiggles. Bun
Yeah,
wiggles.
they-
They're
Bun
like
wiggles are
bunnies.
like
They're
an-
like bunnies. They're like bunnies that are really fat and they wiggle on their bellies.
It's-
Oh, that sounds adorable.
imagine a Dragon Quest slime, only it's a bunny.
I
Kinda what it
imagine
is.
they have to be there, right? I don't know, but they were in a demo. They were the rat pigs, and just standard horses and cows, from what I remember, in the farmland area. Two, I totally get why people are disappointed that Arise doesn't have co-op because that relatively high budget RPGs these days, especially JRPGs, like don't offer co-op features, and Tales was kind of like that landmark series like people could turn to at least up until now, where they could reliably like play with another friend, because for all like you'd be surprised, but a good chunk of their audience like that thing about Tales of just being able to play with another person, because that's just not a thing that you really see anymore these days. So
This is a bit of a
I get it.
tangent. Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is a bit of a tangent, but like I remember when the Call of Duty games always had campaign co-op, and I'm not a big Call of Duty fan, but I would love just to like maybe rent one or play one for 10 hours and go through it. And then when they stopped pulling those out, when they stopped adding, like none of the recent ones have that, as far as I know, my interest just plummeted. And I know like Halo, they just announced for the new Halo game coming. Yeah, we're talking about Madden and Halo on this RPG podcast. Sorry, this is my fault. But like they announced that one's not going to launch with campaign co-op, and people are legitimately like bummed out because it's kind of like it lowers the barrier of entry. It's like this isn't a game I would typically play, but I would love to play it through with my best friend or my family or whatever. And when you pull that out, certain people are just going to be like, I'm no longer interested. So I can definitely see if someone's played every Tales game or the majority of them with a friend or with a buddy, and now they don't have that option, I could see a lot of people just being like, I'm not interested anymore.
Kind of similarly, I'm not a Resident Evil fan, but I did end up playing.
That's another good one.
6
Yeah,
simply because you could play them in co-op.
Adam and I are brothers, so basically,
great.
like we're referring to each other indirectly there. But yeah, we played through Resident Evil 5 and 6 in co-op and played none of the other games. But we're like, hey, this is something we can play together for 20 hours or whatever.
They're good fun in co-op.
Yeah, those are really fun in co-op. Good choices.
It's like how it's designed for, but as a single player experience, it's kind of lacking.
Well, yeah, then you run into that problem of whether the game is designed for single player and then kind of like twisted into a co-op experience or vice versa. Back to Tales.
Going back to Tales, Brian and I
Go
played Tales of the Abyss on PlayStation 2 in the mid-2000s when it released. Tales of the Abyss, for those who don't know, has a system. It's called Field of Phonons, where you can do an attack and it like leaves a mark on the field, where if another person does an attack on that mark, it can be like altered in a way. Like, for example, one character might do a lightning attack and it leaves like a spark on the field, and if another character does a different attack on that spark, it'll like be an electric version of the attack. So you can kind of chain together like these cooperative attacks in this way. And that actually worked pretty well in co-op because you can set things up and communicate, and it was pretty cool. Obviously, like in single player, you kind of just have to do whatever the AI does, but
or you can shortcut it.
Right, but it worked. That was just one of those like small systems that worked better in co-op, and it was fun. It was one of the cases where Tales co-op was really cool.
So going back to Jess's experience with the demo, does the demo allow you to play with all 6 characters?
Yes.
Or
You can play through each character, and I believe each one gets a special cutscene at the end, but I only played through Xion so far.
Yeah, how it divides it up is when you start the demo, say, hey, you can pick between each of these 6 characters, but even when you choose you choose that character, you're not locked to that character for that playthrough. You can still switch characters mid-battle and alter your party setup and whatnot. So you're not you're not bound to them. And then there's three like cinematic movies that or that play after the end of the demo, depending on if you beat it. It's like with duos. So if you do it with Alphen or Xion, it'll play their movie. If it's Law or Rinwell, it's their movie. And then if it's Dohalim, or I forgot his name, I think it's Dohalim and Kisara, it's their movie. Like it's kind of like just a trailer basically with their narration and whatnot.
Back to the like multiple characters thing. When you get really like into the weeds a bit, when you're like in a hectic battle, even playing single player, there are times you can not only set different shortcuts to your to your control scheme to have a certain character do a certain thing, which is sometimes useful for like your healer, like, hey healer, do this healing spell right now, sort of thing, because they may not do it on their own otherwise. So that's useful. But you can even just in many Tales games switch characters mid battle if you need like somebody to move because of some attack, or maybe your healer is getting too close or whatever. So there are cases where sometimes if you get good enough at controlling it, where you switch to a different character just for a moment to like position them and then switch back. So
yeah, I guess it's a good time to really just delve deep into how exactly Tales of Arise's battle system like works, because it takes a while for like when they're showing off marketing, it's like, oh, it's this, and this. It's like, oh, okay, well, I guess that kind of makes sense. But after getting like spending some hours with the battle system, like it's really very freeform and it's very flexible. I was very surprised that, especially, it's a big upgrade from how they kind of did the soul gauge system with Berseria. In Berseria, you had like these diamonds. They were in Tales of Destiny, I think, as well, where you have arts like your special skills on you, and they consume part of this soul gauge. In Berseria, it felt a little bit limiting because whenever you got hit in battle, it would take off the maximum amount of like soul gauge that you have, so it felt very punishing if you got hit in battle, and that I didn't really like that about Berseria. In Arise, they call it the action gauge, so I guess for simplicity's sake, I'll prefer it as the action gauge now. It's still like these diamonds, and you kind of have a good amount of them. You have like maybe 8 or 9. Of course, I don't know if you start out with this amount at the beginning of the game. It's like this vertical slice had all your party members at level 25. It was still, I imagine it's like a good amount of hours into like the final game, if this is like a real area in the game or real scenario. So unlike Berseria, you actually have like a standard attack button that you can use. In Berseria, you can only use arts as attacks. So you didn't have like any, like, if you were like idling and you didn't have any action gauge in there, you couldn't really do much. But here you actually have a standard attack sequence. So let's take Alphen, for example, because he's the one with the sword, very basic, but very flashy. And how it works in Arise is your arts now are split into whether you're on the ground or you're in the air. So one of Alphen's arts launches them into the air, or you can just do a manual jump in battle as well and gain access to it like that. So you have, for the purposes of the demo, they had you could bind 3 arts on the ground and 3 in the air. They later confirmed in a YouTube video on the Tales of YouTube channel that they'll have additional binds. So they'll add an additional 3 on the ground and additional 3 in the air for a total of 6 on the ground and 6 in the air in the final game. I don't know if they'll expand that anymore, but that's the info that we were given at the moment. So it's a healthy amount. You'd have 12 arts accessible to you at any time. So as you're playing through battles and doing your mixing up your arts and your normal attacks, as you're expending these diamonds, you can actually refill them very fast. You have access to like these support attacks from your characters at the dictated by the bottom left corner, where they can just like hop in as like a support attack, like in a fighting game almost. And after they do their support attack, you instantly refill 3 action gauge, 3 diamonds on it, and these already refill really fast if you don't like attack for like a second, and they refill like within maybe a second and a half almost, which is still faster than Berseria. So you have access to a lot of like that resource already, because everyone's gauge is uniquely independent. So if you use Xion's support attack, it'll refill 3. If you use Law's support attack, they're all on different gauges, so that'll refill 3. So you always have a constant resource for activating arts and whatnot, and that was really cool. That felt really good, just like kind of mashing your way through battles and thinking of like unique combo opportunities to do that. As well as in the demo, only Alfred had access to his Mystic Art, which is like his ultimate attack. So at a certain point, he can go into like this over gauge where like your diamonds transform into like a bar that's filling down gradually, and you have access to. You can perform as many arts as you want on there, but then you also have access to your Mystic Art where you can like press 2 arts buttons at the same time in a attack string for him to do his ultimate attack. So it brings up a lot of strategy of how you want to play in terms of like, okay, when do I want to launch this enemy in the air? Because as you hit enemies, they'll eventually hit break status, and break status for normal enemies means that they react to hit stun. So anytime you hit them, they kind of flinch. You can launch them into the air more easily and get access to your abilities there. I think the one thing I didn't like in the demo was this is a Vesperia problem as well, I believe, where it's very difficult to get a big unique enemies and bosses into a break state. So it's hard for you to juggle them. You kind of have to at a certain point you can't just mash against them and kind of put them into break status. You have to respect that they're gonna attack, and you have to be ready for it.
At least it seems like it avoids the issue of being low on TP, and you just kind of have to like build it up through attacking very slowly. I think Abyss and Vesperia both kind of have that issue where other games, they've kind of gotten away from that in various different ways. Like Tales of Graces had its own mechanic that allowed you to do arts more readily, and then it sounds like Arise is also a little bit more clever about it as well.
Yeah. So it does feel good. The battle system does feel good. I was very impressed with that. There's also for all the other characters you can like do a dodge roll to evade, but Kasara, instead of having a dodge roll, she has her shield, of course, to guard. And then there's like instant dodge and instant shield mechanics where kind of like Bayonetta almost, where if you do a perfect instant dodge, it'll kind of slow down time just for a little bit, and that you get in a counter attack. So that's a nice little touch. And other than that, it's like everyone has their own little like nuances. Like Alpha kind of almost has the Velvet thing where he'll sacrifice some HP to do damage, though not as egregious as Velvet. Rinvel is interesting because she's the mage of the party, so she has her own mechanics of how you cast spells, because there's a whole system where you can store a spell by holding down the magic button, and then like in your next attack string, it'll fire off that spell, so you can do kind of like chain magic on. And then if you reserve that spell, you cast another spell of the same type, you can like upgrade that magic too. So she's very versatile in that. As Jess might have seen with Xion is very versatile with her ranged attacks and how you chain them into one another, especially with her support attack, because each character can do like their own support attack almost to refill their diamonds as well. And she has grenades as well. And there's a really funny skit in the demo. And I'm sure you saw it, Just. Did you see the skit about Alphen and Xion having this exchange about like the world's most dangerous healer?
Yeah, and then they were like, "Where did the bombs come from?" And it's like, "Oh, it's actually my energy condensed into a little ball."
Yeah, and then Xion's like, "Well, you just got to get it out of the way, or else I'm just gonna have to heal you. Just deal with it."
Oh yeah,
I guess. So it's a nice little exchange there. Law, of course, martial arts. The whole limb is really fun because his animations of the staff is really, really great for aerial combat. And I was watching some people do like theory crafting with Tales of Arise's system, where they do like an aerial combo, and then they'll do like Xion's support attack. And then after she does her support attack, they'll actually switch to her character mid support attack, so they now have control of her. So there's actually a lot of room. Like almost every Tales games does this, where they have like a dedicated like battle theory crafting community of like how they can break like the system open for more like combo theory and whatnot, which is kind of not necessarily exclusive to Tales, but the community, the long-standing community, is definitely one of the more unique communities out there because of how Tales kind of varies up its action RPG system every entry. But it's the demo is a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun exploring it. There's like little touches that I got a kick out of. For example, when you're at the equipment screen, you can actually access like the character viewer, like the model viewer there, so you can like have your characters do certain action poses and zoom out or zoom in on them. And then after you get out of that model viewer, it'll like preserve that camera angle and pose in the equipment screen, but only for that instance. So if you exit out and then go back into their idle pose, but it's just like one of those really goofy things. Like you probably didn't have to do this, but that's really funny. So I imagine a lot of people are gonna have like fun with like all the outfits and whatnot that this game will have, and kind of pose them in really funny ways. And I guess Bandai Namco recently announced as well, now that we're on outfits, they were teasing like, oh, this game's gonna have collaboration costumes with our other series, and then they unveiled that a few days ago, where Shion's gonna get Mia's outfit from Code Vein, so like that big hat that she has in her black coat. Rinmel's gonna have a outfit from the Idolmaster Starlit Season, which is the new Idolmaster game coming out, and it's like one of the costume dresses in that game. And the funny one was that stuck out to me was Kisara is getting Nino Williams' outfit from Tekken. It's like from Tekken 4, I think, or Tekken 5. It's like that purple body tight suit outfit. But it's kind of out of nowhere.
Tekken 7.
Is it Tekken 7? Does she wear it too? I thought Nino wore a wedding dress.
I think it's
in
like Tekken 7. 5.
I think
that spin-off game. Do you remember that spin-off game?
Yeah, it's like something of vengeance or something.
Yeah, it's based on that costume.
Oh, okay.
Is it that?
It started in 3, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking like, was it? She must have worn it like between like before that spin-off game. I thought it was like 4 or 5, but I can't remember. It's not her latest outfit, because her latest outfit in 7, I think it's the default wedding dress. I think, right? I think that's what it is. But
I'll just be honest, like this stuff doesn't move me. Just like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a fun for goofs, And there, like a lot of the Tales community likes to dress up their characters in goofy outfits and whatnot and accessories. So it's a fun thing. But Horizon is looking really promising. I really like the demo and what I saw there. I'm really looking forward more to it. The cure points thing is kind of to me at the moment, it feels like a non-issue that we were talking about the other week, where you use cure points to like heal up your allies and whatnot, and then you might need them for dungeon mechanics. But then you have this campfire that you can rest at, where it'll just instantly cure it, all of it and whatnot. I think the last thing worth mentioning that Jess alluded to earlier was this game kind of has like a light gambit system to it, where you can, like in other Tales games, you can set like your AI strategies, like be more conservative MP, or like go all out or whatnot. And in this one, you can make like a custom AI behavior almost, where you're doing a lot of like, if you can add like if then statements to it. So like if your HP is below 50%, then or if Law's HP is below 50%, then Law will cast heal on himself. Or if ally is KO'd, then use this healing resurrection item, but only if you have 10 or more of this item. So, and you can like keep on stacking commands like that and really fine tune like AI behavior, so you don't have to like worry about them like running your inventory dry or running your cure points dry and whatnot. So it gives you a lot of versatility to it. And then the last thing that I'll mention that really irked me about the demo, but then my worries were alleviated, was in the demo, since you're really reliant on having access to your arts in the air. When you're in the air for that demo, you can't evade. And I was like, oh man, I'm stuck in the air. I'm gonna get hit because I'm just locked into this animation in the air and I have no way to dodge. I saw a screenshot from one of the Bandai Namco things where they rolled out that system of like titles now have like their own skills to it. So like you obtain a title, and then like you can unlock skills based on the titles that you have. And one of like the early ones, I guess, is you can unlock like a mid-air evasion, and I was like, okay, cool. They're actually allowing for that in the game, which is I'm gonna try to unlock that immediately because I like dodging a lot. So that's kind of like my final first impressions on it. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, one of the other things that I wanted is like, like if you get knocked down, you need to like stay there and like get plowed through with another attack.
Oh yeah, they're really good at like juggling you at times, especially when like the boss does its swipe attack. It's like comboing you in the corner. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, so I'm hoping there's another skill for that. I know Scarlet Nexus had like a get up skill where you press a button and you bounce right back up instead of just
Mhm.
stay there. So
Yeah.
that's something I would like to.
Yeah, I imagine they'll allow for that. There'll be a skill like that in the skill panel. The skill panel was a locked feature, so that wasn't accessible in the demo. But yeah, it's only what, how many weeks? Like 3 weeks left, almost. So almost there.
It's a coming.
Do you have any other final thoughts on the demo on your side, Jess?
Not in particular, just like I feel like it enticed me enough, like even if we didn't get much into the characters, like there's little bits that I was like, okay, why, like how did they meet, or like what is this special power that Xion has, or like Alphen has. So I feel like it did everything that it needed to get me invested, basically.
Cool. So you're getting a good enough feel for what you can. Like Adam said, it's hard in a vertical slice, but the character interactions, you're like, I want to see more of this and see like how they came to be here and where the plot is going.
Yeah, and the gameplay was satisfying enough with like you mentioned with the diamonds. I didn't feel like I was really I didn't feel like I was ever really running out too much of the skill points, so I feel like it was a pretty fluid gameplay experience, and I'm interested in the character, so definitely would try it out.
Yeah, for perspective, just like imagine those diamonds, but every time you got hit, you would lose a diamond. Like
Oh yeah,
that's
that
how
sounds terrible.
yeah, that's how Berseria was. We're like, oh, I guess I'm being limited by like what I can do, and that didn't feel good. So I'm glad they improved on that system.
It's sort of self-punishing in a way where it's like you're not doing well. Well, we're gonna make it even harder for you. Like, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
So the next game on the list is something that James is going to have to speak to. This is something that we wanted to talk about last week, but we couldn't squeeze it in. And that is, I hope I get this right.
Okay.
Utawarerumono Zan 2. There.
Close enough.
So
Close enough.
I know we've talked about
Zan.
on previous Zan 2. Zan. Okay. Not Zan, Zan. We've talked about like Mask of Deception, Mask of Truth, and some of those from the original like 3 games. On previous podcasts, but as far as I understanding is that Zan 1 was an action spin-off and Zan 2 is a follow-up of that. So James, either correct me or take it off and elucidate on what Zan 2 is and what you feel about it.
So they're both definitely action spin-offs, kind of Muso type style. I believe the developer is Tamsoft, who's done I think they did the Center and Kagura games along with Marvelous, and they also
Tamsoft does a lot of Compile Heart Neptunia games.
Yeah. So Zon is interesting because not only is it a spin-off, but the first one was roughly an adaptation of Mask of Deception, and Zon 2 is roughly an adaptation of Mask of Truth. And I actually reviewed Zon 1. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I said that it's absolutely not a fantastic game. It's fun enough. My main issues with it were a lack of content and the fact that as an adaptation of Mask of Deception, it makes no sense to play it if you haven't played the original because it condensed so much of the story that it just didn't make sense to recommend to people. And I remember in my original review actually saying that I felt like Zon 2 could be a lot better if they ever did it because, first off, even if they condensed Mask of Truth to the same degree that they condensed Mask of Deception, Mask of Truth itself is just so much larger than Mask of Deception and has so many more battles that they could adapt that obviously it would be a much larger game regardless. And also, I remembered saying that one thing that stood out to me about Zon 1 was right at the very ending, they had a cutscene for the ending for Mask of Deception. It was really well animated. It was like an actual like 3D animated scene, whereas everything else was literally just like talking heads, like recreating the visual novel, which I felt like that was a really big missed opportunity because if you're going to make the game into a 3D brawler like a Muso game and you're going to make it, oh, it's all 3D models and all that, take advantage of that. Like make cutscenes, do stuff like that. I mean, like I know so many people that love the Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm games because even though they're adaptations of the anime, they take advantage of the fact that it's 3D to show all these things. And anyways, Zon 2 basically did everything that I wanted as a sequel to Zon 1 to change because now there's all these different cutscene adaptations of these really key scenes and Mask of Truth. So I wouldn't recommend Zon 2 to everyone, but if you're a fan of Utawarerumono, it's like really cool to see all of these scenes in 3D with these really good animations, especially at the very ending of the game. There's just pops off, does a ton of really cool stuff. The problem with Zon 2 is it does actually have some new story content, mostly side story stuff, but because of that, that means that there are portions of Zon 2's story that don't have a localization yet, so they can't just simply grab the Atlas script and like insert it into the game. So it still might be localized. Who knows? But I'm not sure if I would count on it yet.
Are you
First
glad
one
that
was,
you
it was
imported it, though?
NIS America, right?
Yeah, it was NIS America, and actually, they outright told me that the deal with it was is that they really were only interested in Prelude to the Fallen, but then Aquaplus was like, "Hey,
Do
we
this.
have, we'll give you the license for this as a freebie," and they're like, "Okay, well, it's already localized. We can give it a little bit of marketing. It's like free money." But
Yeah.
considering that, I assume that Zon 1 probably did not sell very well and the fact that Nisa would have to put a bit more effort into Zon 2. I am not sure if they will bite on it. And if they don't bite on it, I don't know who would. Because Shiravoon has some folks that are really interested in the series, but they're a PC publisher exclusively. And that's a lot of effort they'd have to go like put into it to localize it. So who knows?
I
I
feel like
mean,
almost everything gets localized these days except Tsukihime. So that's my guiding philosophy is everything will eventually get localized except Tsukihime.
well, hopefully. I mean, it's funny how we got a like day and date localization for the Melty Blood, well, the new Melty Blood, but we don't have anything for the game that it's basically an advertisement for.
It hurts. It hurts. It's coming out soon too. It's like coming out like in like a
Next
week
month.
and yeah, in a week and a half. No, it's
Oh,
no,
no, no,
next
the
month is
remake, yeah.
Melty. Yeah,
Yeah.
remake Tsukihime remake. It's like yeah, soon. Fuck.
Are we going to have to make space for another fighting game on the podcast?
Yes.
Maybe probably.
It's a bit
Okay,
of-
I'll look forward to that.
Well, actually, don't worry, Josh. I'm sure the Melty Blood title will have its own like visual novel story mode. You can pretend that you're playing the Tsukihime remake.
All right.
Pain.
Are you glad that you imported Zon 2?
Yes, I'm definitely gonna write up something about it, but it's I'm not sure what which angle I'm gonna go for yet, but I'm enjoying it. I had a good time. I, I don't regret importing it specifically because I have my doubts it's going to be localized, and if it does, it will be a while. So it was nice.
I
Definitely,
forgot. Is the same developers Tamsoft? Are they working on that Neptunia versus Senran Kagura game?
yes, I
Okay.
believe so. I believe so. But yeah.
And then I do know, James, that you spoke a little bit last week about your experience with the second part, actually also the first part of Fantasian, which I've wanted to get to, but I haven't had a chance yet. But I know that you've been working your way through it. And we kind of gave you space to follow up with like some concluding thoughts this week. And you had brought up in a couple of different conversations some things that were really at the tip of your tongue or at the front of your mind that you wanted to bring up here today.
Okay, so first off, and we kind of talked about this last week. Fantasian's second half is very different from the first part. Not just in terms of the structure, but like it's a radically different game. The story really starts going off in these different directions. The gameplay changes up quite a bit because you get access to the growth map, and it's much more open-ended. Like very early on, you get access to the Urzra, I think that's how you pronounce it, or is it Urza?
Yeah, like the
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 ship.
ship. Yeah.
The ship. So you can move around the world, and like the first part of Fantasian was basically entirely linear. Like there were things that you could check off the beaten path, but otherwise it was just completely just go from one location to the next, and then eventually hit the point where shit happens. And part two is very Final Fantasy VI World of Ruin esque, where you start off, you have to regather your party. Like I can say that I won't say why that happens, but just it's very much Final Fantasy VI inspired, because even like once that happens, you even get this story quest called uh In Search of Friends.
Relatable.
Yeah, we invoked that comparison last week, but it's a safe comparison, but it's it's a good foundation for segmenting an RPG, so it works.
Yeah. So the one thing I want to talk about this week, and it's really hard to talk about specifics because both Josh and I talked a little bit about the bosses last week and how they have their each unique gimmicks, and how more specifically the game gets a bit more difficult in the second half. And I'm literally staring at the final boss right now in the game. I need to grind a little bit because, and one thing I will talk about later is like the pacing of like levels and whatnot. But the bosses in the second part get really, really difficult. And I'm not sure how much you've been paying attention to the chat about Fantasian in that one RPG server we're in, Adam. But if you've been paying attention at all, like there's just a handful of us that have been playing it, and all of us have been like, "Why is this so hard? We didn't expect it." It's like one of the hardest RPGs I've played in a long time.
Yeah,
Uh,
Sakaguchi is not fucking around anymore. He's like, you know what? RPGs too easy these days.
so I guess being vague, like how far are you into the game, Josh? Like what level range?
I'm like in the level 40-ish range. I haven't really proceeded. I haven't really picked up the game since like last time because I've been dealing with some real life stuff. So I don't really want like a mentally stressful game right now in the midst of all that. And that's what I've heard about Fantasian Part 2. It's like it's really good, but it will really like strain you. So I'm like, maybe I'll like hold this off for a little bit until like I'm in a better like when things have calmed down in my certain life at the moment.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Basically, the best way to describe it is that if part one is like, well, actually, the only way to say it is that part one's a tutorial. Once you finish part
Mhm.
one, the game's just like, okay, you should know what you're doing. You've got all of your characters. You better know how each of them works, because one of the defining characteristics of the game is that each of the bosses has a unique gimmick. And the way that the game kind of forces you to swap out your party is that certain bosses will require like skills that certain party members have, or a combination of skills that certain party members have. And in some cases, the game will outright tell you this. And you'll, one of the things it kind of does is that normally you have access to the ability to swap out party members in the middle of combat. And there are a number of bosses where a specific character will like force themselves into your party when you fight it, and you cannot swap them out because they are a
Okay.
required character for that boss fight.
Interesting.
So, and Josh was kind of talking about this before the podcast, so I'll just it's really hard to talk about the bosses in this game because since each of them is pretty unique, you don't want to talk about them because they're kind of spoiling the whole fun of figuring out, okay, how the hell do I beat them? But so many of them just have really radically different ways of tackling them. One that's pretty early on into part two, so I'll mention it, is that for one of Ez's quests, there's a boss that will start off by immediately summoning a bunch of these like little bulb enemies. And the deal with the fight is that if you hit those bulb enemies, they will blow up and do a ton of damage to your entire party. So you want to use his vacuum skill to kind of reposition them so that they're not in front of the boss, so you can attack the boss without worrying about damaging yourself. And that's just like one instance of like how the game forces you to use your party to its fullest. There's other examples.
And also
Uh,
that also makes positioning like crucially important as well.
Yeah, positioning, especially in the second half of the game, becomes really important. There's like a few instances of it in part one, like the one boss where when it opens its mouth, Cheryl's attacks will deal extra damage because literally she's just like jumping directly into its mouth to deal damage. But there's another one early on in part two where just one gimmick of the fight is that you need to kind of catch up to it. It'll like grab something and you're chasing it. And you need to attack parts of its body to slow it down, and you have to time it because its body is like it's like a big like centipede dragon thing, and it's like moving its body like shifting like rotationally, and you have to wait until its weak part is like visible so you can attack it in order to actually deal damage to break those parts to slow it down so you can eventually get back to the other phase.
It's definitely
So just going by, I have not played it. So this is me. I plan on playing it. I 100% plan on playing it. But so this is just me going by what you've said and me envisioning it. I'm of two minds of like, I'm glad that the bosses are more than just do as much damage as quickly as possible and heal yourself sometimes. Because a lot of RPG bosses are basically just that, just DPS, just do a bunch of damage. So I'm glad it seems like you actually have to deal damage in a certain way or with a certain strategy, but also I hope it's not too like lock and key where you have to do it this one specific method, and if you're not doing it that way, you're not going to win. So it's sort of a balancing act.
It's lock and
guess.
key. Basically, every boss you have to play by its rules, or you're not going to win.
yeah. There's not something you can like muscle to it with stats. It's definitely
Well, it's the best way to describe it is that it's not play by the boss's rules or suffer. It's play by the boss's rules and suffer, but maybe live. Because even if you know what to do, the game is incredibly like challenging and incredibly strict with making sure like keeping up with buffs, keeping up with debuffs on the boss, keeping up with healing. Ah, God, so many bosses you basically are forced to give them an attack down debuff and buff the defense on your entire party, and it'll still do like 4,000 damage in a multi-hit attack, and you're basically forced to heal immediately afterwards. It's it's
I really wonder if they're gonna give this another pass of like maybe like tune like maybe if they receive feedback and like they like look at the statistics, like maybe they just overtune some stats or whatever for some of these boss encounters. I wonder because I already saw that like a friend of mine got to like a dungeon that's not even added to the game yet. It's like, oh, it'll be added in a later update and whatnot, and it's like, oh, that's weird. So this is still gonna come out with content. There's not like the end right now, definitively. The
No,
end.
it is. It is. It's just really funny because there's two aspects of the game that aren't in there yet. There's a post-game dungeon called the Void Realm, and then there's New Game Plus. The problem is that you wouldn't actually know it's not in the game yet until you try to go to it, because literally you pick up something in this optional area and it's like it says, "Oh, you have access to the Void Realm now." And then you try and go to it on the world map and it says, "This is not in the game yet. It'll come in a later update." And then there's like this time gate that if you go to with this medal, it'll say, "Oh, do you want to go to New Game Plus?" And you click yes, and it says New Game Plus will not be available until a later update.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. But like, it's like yes, the story there's probably a story end to it, but like for the lifespan of the game, there's still content that'll be released for it that
Yeah,
it's not implemented in the game yet.
I'm not sure if they're gonna make it easier because the game knows it's bullshit. Like right after I finished an optional boss, it outright said, like, there's like a commentary about like one of the characters saying, "Man," because it's the booby trap chest from part one that you couldn't beat in part
hmm
one. Basically now you can, but when you finish it, like Leo outright says, "Man, I need to make the next one absorb all elements and like debuff the entire party." And it's like they knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. Just God. I'm still having a lot of fun. I I mean, I think since I'm at the final boss, I'm close enough to the end to say my quote unquote final thoughts. It's a great game. It's definitely not for everyone though, because it's an incredibly challenging RPG. And at the start of the game, you wouldn't really know it because it just you reach a point where the game just goes like, okay, training wheels are off. You better know what you're doing. And I enjoy that. And it's a lot of fun figuring out what the game wants you to do for each of the boss fights. But I also understand that for a lot of people, that's not what they signed up for.
Yeah,
And
it's somewhat deceiving because there's no ramp up to it. It kind of you just like slam into a wall and it's like, oh shit, what do I do? You know,
Oh, I
Or
know,
the-
I know there are serious doubts whether or not this game will ever get ported. But let's just say there is some expiration on its exclusivity, years, whatever. Let's just assume it is. Like,
Mhm.
is it possible they retune it if it comes out for PlayStation or Switch or whatever? Like,
I think it's always
maybe?
possible.
I mean it's possible, but let's put it this way. This game is this difficult and it's a mobile game.
Mhm.
So, if anything, I feel like they'd have even less worry about the difficulty if they're gonna release it on a console platform, which and I hate to generalize, most players that are playing on consoles are going to be more hardcore than folks playing games on their iPhone.
See, what they have to do now is they just have to like lean into it. They just have to advertise it. This game is like the Dark Souls of classic JRPGs. I'm not being serious, by the way. Don't take me serious.
It is kind of weird
Mm.
because like the other Mistwalker efforts weren't really like that. They were more just like even keeled. So
Oh, yeah.
this is kind of a different tack for them.
In
Yeah.
fact, Blue Dragon, which I forget if that's only partially Mistwalker, but like that game was criticized for being too easy, and I know a lot of people say like you should play this game on hard mode. It's not actually hard; it just makes it like engaging. Blue Dragon is great, by the way.
But yeah, Fantasian, great game. I do not know if I'm gonna come back for the post-game dungeon, like and I've seen that same exact sentiment from the other 2 people in that Discord that've been playing through it because it's like, the game's already ball-bustingly difficult, and then you're saying, "Oh, here's a post-game dungeon," which, of course, is going to be even harder, and it's like I'm not sure if I wanna do that. Like, maybe if it was in the game right now, I would consider it, but the fact that I'm going to finish the game, put it down for several months, and then an update's gonna come out that's gonna add even more difficult
Then you,
content, and I have to
then you have to
readjust to it.
resub.
Yeah, it's just like, no, no, I'm sorry, Sakaguchi. I love this game. It's probably one of my, like, really strong contenders for Game of the Year so far, but no, no. Like I might be a dungeon RPG player, which means that I have at least a bit of a masochism streak, but not that much. Please, no.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get back to it. Just as everything you're saying is just like I need something somewhat relaxing right now. Like in my spare time, I've been replaying the Judgment, but the remaster now in preparation for the sequel next month, and I've been having a blast with that. And that's kind of what I need right now. It's kind of like a somewhat of more of a chill game, even though it's kind of like a grim game storyline wise. But I can't do like super hard bosses right now. I'm like, oof.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about it in a little bit of a different context where these other games like Wasteland 3 or Outer Worlds were like would get it's not a post game dungeon, but they add stuff after like you put the game down for several months and you're like, I maybe if it was there months ago I would have tried it, but I'm done with the game now. I don't really have that much inclination to go back. So that's kind of what that reminded me of when you said that's kind of like the breaking point is the fact that it's not there now and you don't know what your mind space will be whenever it does get added. Like you'll have forgotten how to play the game. We see these things about RPGs about like where was I, what was I doing, how do I play again.
Almost
Like,
every time there's like a post, like a DLC or an expansion or whatever, I've readjusting to the game is always just kind of a tedious thing. I remember doing it for Outer Worlds. I remember doing it for Horizon when they had like the Frozen Wastes or whatever they called it.
Frozen Wilds,
yeah, Frozen Wilds, which just comes out several months or sometimes even more than a year after the game. Just like, how do I play this again?
Actually, recently I had played the Yuffie DLC.
Oh yeah,
and, like I had played Final Fantasy VII Remake on hard mode, and I figured out how to beat the final boss, and it was difficult, and I got pretty good at the game, I think. And then I pick up the controller again a year later to play the Yuffie DLC, and I'm like, Babby's first controller. I don't know what I'm doing. And then eventually have to work my way back up to defeating the optional content in that DLC. So it never gets any easier. Or maybe it's just the fact that we get older and that's why it gets harder. I don't know. But
yeah, I
feel
mean,
that. Go ahead.
there's so much I want to talk about Fantasian, but it's again totally one of those cases where you don't want to spoil the surprise.
Yeah,
It's so
especially
many-
the way these bosses are set up. You don't want to just give away the
Yeah.
answer.
I
Like,
probably
on this boss
shouldn't.
you have to do this.
I probably shouldn't have tweeted about this one like mechanic thing it does for these like one side quests. Adam probably knows what I'm talking about, but it's like that was one of those things where it's like, ah man, if this wasn't a game of the year contender for me before, it certainly is now. But I guess the last thing I want to say is that it is indeed as long as Sakaguchi was saying it is, because I am like 58 hours in. I need to do a bit of grinding before the final boss, so I'm definitely going to end the game at over 60 hours, which, considering
what he
how
said.
difficult the game is, that's a commitment, like both time-wise as well as just like actually, oh no, I have to think about what I'm doing in this turn-based JRPG.
Oh, imagine thinking in RPGs.
Go back to playing Final Fantasy IV where you don't have to think.
I will.
Coming up with a
Coming out
remaster any
soon,
day
probably.
now. Maybe the next time we talk about Fantasian more in depth is when it shows up on the end of the year discussions, because I'm sure it'll be there in some capacity.
Yep.
The last game we want to talk about, I think, is just for a couple minutes, just a check-in of a game that had been previously on the podcast, Monster Hunter Stories 2. We kind of made fun of like the extent to how they like drip-fed that marketing to us, and then obviously we did the review and James had talked about it, and I believe we even had Cullen talking about it, at least on one podcast. But I also wanted to hear Adam's perspective, because unlike the rest of us, Adam has gone through and played Monster Hunter Stories 1 and 2 back to back without having ever played another Monster Hunter game. So Adam, I just kind of wanted to get like your quick thoughts about like Monster Hunter Stories and Stories 2 being your first foray into the series. Just like, what is your immediate off the cuff impression having played through those?
Okay, so Monster Hunter is a series that has interested me, but not enough for me to like, I want to play this. So I don't know if that, maybe it didn't interest me. I don't know. But these Monster Hunter Stories 2 was, being a bunch of trailers, a bunch of promotion, and I was sort of interested in it being more of like a turn-based RPG, monster collecting sort of game. I know it's supposed to be, or seems to be, some sort of Capcom answer to Pokemon in a way, with the Monster Hunter monsters and flavor and style and whatnot. But I wanted to play the first game first before the sequel, just to I'm always interested in seeing how like a game evolves over time, or a series evolves over time. Not just for story reasons, but just like, oh, this is how the mechanic originally worked, and this is how they tweaked it for the sequel and things like that. I'm glad I did, because it really is a direct sequel in terms of there's like 5 or 6 different characters that literally are just the same characters coming back again for the second game. So you don't absolutely need to know their like what they did in the first game, but it's they're just coming back and they're the same person, so why not, right? So Monster Hunter Stories 2, I like the game, but I don't think it's great. I just think it's good. It's okay, at least for my taste. It's a monster raising game, so you're primarily catching monsters, you're raising them, you form a team of 6, just like Pokemon. Especially when you get to the later parts of the game, things like elements become really crucial, so you have to pay attention to your different monsters' elemental attributes and things like that, at least if you want to make it easier for yourself. One thing about the game that sort of doesn't sit with me too well is I think it gets kind of repetitive in terms of the gameplay, the broader like macro scale structure of the game. Actively go to an area, you find the local town, and the local town is basically like, we have these causing havoc or whatever, and there's usually a pit that needs to be, there's an icy biome, there's like a garden flowery, foresty biome, monsters you catch and things like that. But you kind of are really doing the same thing in each one. So game like an hour 35 is pretty much the same as it is an hour 5. So I feel like it's missing a sense of progression in a way that I like in RPGs. The progression, I guess, is you can catch different monsters and experiment with them a bit. But once I sort of found like a squad of monsters I was happy with, I kind of just stuck with them. So maybe that's on me, where it kind of started to feel a little stale.
Well, that's
not
kind
really.
of actually like
'cause I
that's
wasn't
kind of like my
experimenting
experience with Pokemon games. Like once you got your
Mhm.
roster, very rarely do I find like a Pokemon in the later half of the game. Like, oh yeah, I want to sub one of mine out for this. Usually, I'll just stick with the 6 that I got and just kind of clear through the rest of the game easy.
Now, admittedly, one thing that Stories 2, and this is where playing the first game is sort of just good for insight. One thing that Stories 2 does that is a gigantic upgrade over the first game is that it does sort of the Trails Kiseki thing, where if you have a monster who's like they're born at level 1, but let's say your team is level 40, they'll gain like 500% experience starting out, and all monsters gain the same amount of experience. So you can just kind of slot them in your party, and after a few battles, they'll be pretty close to your monster, like to the rest of your party in terms of level. The first game didn't do that, at least not to the same extent. So that does help if you do want to sub out a monster in doing that. However, part of monster raising is also this sort of gene modification where you literally it's like their abilities and their stats. You can adjust these to how you like it. And if you have a monster that you've messed around a lot and gave them some good genes to work with, you kind of don't want to you know what, I don't want to use you anymore because you put time and effort into that. So I sort of found myself wanting to stick with the same team. So I kind of just found myself throughout the game just doing the same things. And it just felt a little bit stale to me. I know all RPGs kind of risk that sort of feeling, where you might find a routine strategy that just works and you stick with it. But I feel like it was a little bit more prevalent here than I would have liked. I still think the game is okay, but that's probably like the one thing that I was the most disappointed in. I do think the game looks really nice. It's got this cel shaded, cartoony style to it that I think works pretty well. I also think, switching gears a little bit, I think Monster Hunter Stories 2 on PC is, by some metric, like the best performing JRPG in terms of like consecutive or concurrent players and things like that. Capcom is, they've kind of hit they've hit the magic, I don't know, lightning in a bottle or whatever you want to call it, in terms of getting people interested in their games and buying them and checking them out, with Monster Hunter Stories 2 doing pretty well. Monster Hunter Rise has sold like 5
Marketing
million
work.
copies. Yeah, it's sold 5
500
million
trailers work.
copies.
Yeah, seeing
It
the
didn't seem to
story
work with
trailer cut
Scarlet
up 8
Nexus,
different
though.
ways.
I know that's Bandai Namco, but
I'm gonna ask you
now
one
I'm
more
going to
quick-
contradict myself. I'm going to
Okay.
contradict myself.
All right.
You ready? So
Mhm.
despite me being kind of lukewarm on the game, I have dived pretty deep into the post-game stuff. And this sort of, I think, gives me at least something of a clue of what like the Monster Hunter grind is like. I know this is a turn-based RPG monster raising game and not like a gear looting treadmill that Monster Hunter main games are, but it's similar in a way where you fight stronger monsters and they give you better gear, and you equip the better gear and better weapons that raise your stats, so that allow you to take on even stronger monsters to get even stronger gear, to fight like the high rank version of the stronger monsters to get even better gear, and you can raise your stats even more with upgrading your weapons. It's like, so this is sort of Monster Hunter, right? Like
Yeah,
that's my take
yeah.
on it.
It's close enough.
And I know
Yeah, I'm
it's
not an
going to be.
expert, but it rhymes.
I have
Yeah,
I have a
so-
very basic question for you, Adam. So this is kind of like your foray into monster. Who's your favorite monster or monster?
Biomutant.
He's not in
Is he
this
in that
game.
one?
Yeah,
Is he not?
nope,
What?
nope. Because Rise just came out, so obviously when they were designing Stories 2, they didn't have access to the.
Yeah, Rise newcomers filtered out of
So
here.
what was sort of
Oh,
funny
well.
is when I was I played a lot of the game with the Rathalos, that is sort of like your Pikachu of the game,
Mhm.
like the cannon monster. But I did play a good chunk of it with Nergigante, and I also had like the Nergigante armor, which is like this like leather spiky like stereotypical like biker girl. I playing as a female character type of stuff, and I'm like, that's literally what I was like in for like the final battle of the game. So here I am, like the hero, and I'm like wearing this like
edgy
Goth
armor.
hero, spiky,
edgy,
yeah.
like spiky, leathery stuff, and I have like Nergigante as my main monstie. Like, yeah, I'm the hero.
Nergigante's
Oh.
great. I love him.
Spiky boy.
But yeah, it was cool. Cool to hear your thoughts on it. So here's the final question: are you gonna play any other Monster Hunter games?
Probably not.
No. All right.
I'll
Okay.
check
Here's
your
the
stories three.
final question. I lied earlier. Do you think that this has any chance of sneaking into the top 10 for our site?
It has a chance for the bottom 5, I think. Maybe. I
Kinda
have
depends
to
on the
think about all the
competition.
RPGs that have come out. Yeah. So
Damn.
But the fact that you don't write it off immediately, so it's just, there's something there. You know, there's good stuff.
I think
about
there is.
it.
I think there's a bit here where it's just like not perfectly aligned with my tastes, more than like being actually poorly designed. So
Right. Very cool. A few articles that we have up on the site that I wanted to at least platform here. This one will be pretty short. We did talk about on the previous couple podcasts about Josh's experience with Dodgeball Academia. I just wanted to point out that he did write up his thoughts into a formal review that's up on the site. So, Josh, I know you talked about it at length last week. I don't know if you had any other final thoughts or if we'll just leave it as that.
I think the thing that caught me off guard was in the comments section. I tweeted this review out on our Twitter. Someone is asking, is pizza on ketchup a thing? And I guess it's kind of like it's become like a Brazilian meme about pizza on ketchup. I didn't actually
pizza on pizza.
yeah. I didn't actually like do any research on like if this was like a thing over there. But I guess it's like that's like a wink to the Brazilian audience that like I'm putting ketchup on pizza, because I didn't know that was actually a thing too until like I saw it in the game. So that's it caught me off guard.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Huh.
For context, it's a Brazilian dev, right?
Yeah, Brazilian indie dev, Pocket Trap.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that written up on the site. And then another thing that we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago with Jess and James was the update to new Pokemon Snap, which both of them were pretty high on. And James ended up kind of writing up some of his thoughts in a feature. New Pokemon Snap's free update makes me long for the game we could have had, which is kind of like a 1-sentence summary of how he had brought it up on that podcast. So, James, I don't know, similar question here. Did you have any other final thoughts on your takeaways from the new Pokemon Snap update?
No, I mean the article kind of speaks for itself, and if not, I talked about it last week. I will say though, that it was fun seeing all of those a couple of comments basically shitting on it, but oh well.
That's going to happen whenever you write anything that involves like an opinion. Like if no one disagrees with your opinion, then what sort of stance are you really taking? I don't know.
I stand with you, James, because the comment I got right Dodgeball was like, I don't know about your final sentence. Your sentence says it should be like an 8.5. I'm like, how can you determine that? That's so weird. That was a funny comment.
Yeah, but for both of these articles, we had kind of spoken. Like if you've listened to other episodes of this podcast, you'll kind of have already heard sort of what those articles cover, but they're up in a written form now too on the site. So just letting people know that they're there, just to kind of square them up and put them away. At the top of this podcast, I talked about some of the few newsy things that had shown up this week. Kind of the biggest one was this on the topic of Pokemon. How auspicious that we're already there. We had the new Pokemon Presents for the upcoming titles for later this year and early next year. Pokemon Legends Arceus and Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. So let's start with Legends Arceus. When this game was announced, I asked you guys how you pronounce that, and I think that's what we ended up on. It's that it's Arceus. Soft C, not Arceus. Arceus.
Arceus?
But so we saw this game a while ago, and people had kind of mixed thoughts on it. It had then we got the release date information in like May, and that's all they said was the release date was January 28th of next year. So we finally got another look at this with the Pokemon Presents, including a new pretty long trailer. And people are going to crucify me for this comparison, but I watched this trailer and nothing else comes to mind. But it really feels like they're just taking everything about the Breath of the Wild like energy of that release from a few years ago and like very almost tactlessly like shoving it into this trailer. Like the way the trailer progresses is similar. The music even feels similar. Like I feel like maybe people say go outside and look at grass. Not everything that has grass is related to Breath of the Wild, but
All right, Brian, get up on this cross. Try to crucify you.
but that's I watched this trailer and then I immediately get like it feels like that's exactly what that energy, at least the enthusiasm that game had. It feels like they're trying to be like, we want a sliver of it, we want a piece of it. So that when I watched the trailer, this is what I got. Go ahead, James.
I might be misremembering, but I want to say that when Game Freak was really first showing off Sword and Shield, they outright said that the wild area was kind of inspired by Breath of the Wild. So am I misremembering this? I want to say they said something along those lines, like maybe during E3 or something. But either way, it's very clear that this is very much Breath of the Wild inspired. And anyone that would crucify you for saying that, well, I guess I'll get up on the cross right next to you.
Oh, thank you, comrades in arms, or at least solidarity.
Okay,
Outside of the
give us
comparison,
some-
what do we think about? So the trailer opens up by kind of showing just like the environments and Pokemon running around, and then it kind of the music picks up and it shows the two characters, the male and the female Pokemon trainers. And it shows little snippets of the combat. It shows some of the new Pokemon. It shows like a new like gliding, flying mechanic.
This is like in a new region, right? The Hisui region.
Well,
Well,
yes and no.
Oh, it's not like a new region to Pokemon, but it's like a new like take on the region, I guess.
Yeah.
It's an older version of a different region, which I forget.
Sinnoh,
Right.
Sinnoh.
Yeah.
Because before they just said ancient Sinnoh, and now they're saying it's Hisui region.
So tell us like about kind of the loop of this game. Like, what are like the big bullet points that really distinguishes this from like your other Pokemon games?
Well, I know George looked at this and he thought it was pretty. Like I looked at this and I couldn't peel myself away from how shameless it was. So I kind of want someone who was like really into what they
All right,
saw to kind of like take over.
George Jess, the speak up.
Yeah, I'm here. I've got it.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw this, I was like, this is what I've wanted Pokemon to be for a really long time. And seeing this trailer, it kind of reinforces that. So combat's the same by the looks of it. I think they've mixed up a little bit and have like order, like you can the battle changes order depending on the move you use. I don't know, like I'm not like super in depth with it, but the exploration is what interests me. And it just seems like it does kind of ape Breath of the Wild in some ways. Like there's just like this massive landscape. You seem to be able to explore it however you want. You seem to be able to like ride Pokemon here and there. And I like that is literally like all I need. I don't really care for Pokemon that much. I don't find the combat, like the turn-based combat, that engaging. Like I know that will get me up on the cross. I'm with you guys, I guess.
People getting crucified here today. Holy shit. Jess, do you want to say anything that'll get you up on the cross too?
Well, one of the things I thought of was like people are saying it's like Breath of the Wild, but I'm like, is that a problem? I was like,
That's true.
if it's
Yeah.
I was
All
like,
right,
well,
another cross. Get another cross out of here.
But yeah, I thought I've played like most Pokemon games, including all the spin-offs. So I'm like, well, I don't think I want to see what happens. Like, I don't want to like shit on it like right before I actually play it. Like, it could be good. Who knows? I'm kind of into the thought.
What are your first
like,
impressions? Is like positive or negative, or like kind of like neutral right now? You're just waiting to see it play out.
I thought it was interesting because I was like, oh, they never really done this kind of thing before. It's the first time really jumping back in time, and then also maybe digging more into mythology as well. Because like I think Alex actually wrote about this for VG247, where he was like, this could potentially be a good spin-off series if this is a good if it ends up taking off. You know, like digging into the different histories behind legendary Pokemon.
Oh, here's my deep hidden hope, going off of your thought of like Alex's hope of this being a good spin-off series. So eventually I want to see a Pokemon Legends, but instead of going to the past, it goes into the far future, and it goes into a sci-fi direction where the Pokemon are mechs and it's open world and you can ride inside them.
Yeah.
Okay. Like every single thing that you appended to that got me like.
You just want to Xenoblade
like,
Chronicles Cross 2.
I will be bold enough to say
we kind of fell off topic. We like a few minutes ago we asked like, what do you do in this game?
No,
Let me just read.
You go for it.
Okay, George, go. I was just going to read the press release and say, like, here's what they say.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'll be bold enough to say that I think every Pokemon game
should be like this in the future. That is
Ooh.
cross pairing thing.
Yeah, spicy.
Yeah, get a second cross for George. Okay.
This is so exciting. This is like this is the evolution of Pokemon in my eyes. I don't know how like it still looks a bit janky, and sometimes I'm shocked that Pokemon's like one of the like highest earning things in the world because all of the games kind of look crap. But I like the style enough, but it's just like it looks a bit like you know? Like, does that make sense? I know I'm just making noises into a mic at this point.
It
but,
does
like,
seem just like there's even just looking at the official screenshots, it looks just kind of muddy a little bit. There's a lot of aliasing. It's like
I'm willing to take this like these visuals for a solid performance because the first showing of this was very, very rough
That's
and
true.
early.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to take this like hit on visuals if it means it'll run at a consistent frame rate.
But
Yeah,
at the same
I'm just
time,
gonna
like,
say-
sorry, James, you go ahead.
Yeah, because like it's still the number one problem with Pokemon Sword and Shield for me is that whenever you try and play in the wild areas online, it's still unplayable. Unplayable. All of the stutters, all of the slowdowns, all of the hitches and freezes. It's just not a good time. I am perfectly happy with Arceus Legends like being less of a like visually stunning experience as long as it has a smooth frame rate and it looks 10 times better from like how it was in the original trailer.
Yeah, I agree there, but you can look at something like I hate to say Breath of the Wild now, get across for me, but you know, Breath of the Wild 8 like Arceus, I know it's a different style, and I like the style they're trying to go for, but I still feel like just fidelity wise, it just doesn't reach it. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Like that, at the end of the day, that's not what this is about. Like it's about the game, and like I say, combat seems sort of similar, but it's just how you enter all of these things. Like instead of like being like a rigid set path, so you go from route 1 to blah 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 blah. Like you guys know how Pokemon works. Otherwise, I've just been made a fool of myself. Now you're doing it, but you're like engaging in it yourself. So you're finding the Pokemon you want to like capture, and you're like recording their actions, stuff like that. There seems to be this element of like nature observation to it. So at one point in the trailer, they bring up like one of the Pokemon, and the Pokedex is like, "Oh, see this creature eat 5 times," or blah blah blah. And he stopped saying blah blah blah.
Yeah, that's exactly verbatim what press release said. Blah blah blah. All right, Adam, we're this far into the Legends discussion. How does this game? What do you do in this game?
All right, so here's how the press release puts it. Pokemon Legends Arceus takes trainers on an adventure through the Sinnoh region of the past. Before it was even called Sinnoh, many years ago, the land was called the Hisui region, and it was rare for humans and Pokemon to live in close harmony. As a member of the Galaxy Expedition team, players will visit Jubilife Village, a bustling settlement that serves as a base of operations. After receiving an assignment or request, trainers will set out from the village to study one of the various areas of the Hisui region. After they finish their survey work, trainers will return to Jubilife Village to prepare for their next task. Whenever trainers leave Jubilife Village to set out on an excursion, their first stop will be one of the base camps that serve as an output for their work. These base camps are more than just starting points. Trainers can stop for a rest during the excursion, letting their team of Pokemon recover their health, or use the base camp's workbench to craft items. And that's it.
I think
that's what I said.
Wait, go on, Jess.
Oh yeah, I mean, I did write a little bit about the gameplay that I learned from this trailer for a different site. So from what I understand, it's like a action RPG kind of like way where you maneuver around the Pokemon. You know, like your character can do dodge rolls and like sneak through grass and stuff too, to capture them or interact with them in different ways. But the actual battles, they are still turn-based.
There was a part in the trailer where you're like getting attacked by a bear, like Pokemon.
Or sorry, yeah. Dodge rolls out of the way.
Ancient, you know, there was no laws in ancient times, so anything went for Pokemon. But I think the main concern I have with this game, after I looked at it and kind of saw how I was gonna play, I hope that what they showed isn't just that's all there is to the gameplay loop, where it's just like kind of stages of like Pokemon that you like kind of think about how you capture them. Some of them are docile, some of them are hostile, where you have to go into battles with them. Some you have to like chase down to kind of capture them. I just hope it's not like this gameplay loop of like tier 1, these easy to catch Pokemon, and then you come back and do all that, and then you go to the tier 2 Pokemon, and then you kind of do the same thing. They're a little bit tougher, and then you're done with that. Then you go to tier 3, and then so on. I'm kind of concerned at the moment. And of course, this can change because it's still a lot of time till it's January release of like the gameplay loop.
Oh yeah, I think we were talking about that with Pokemon Snap. I kind of hope that it's not like that either.
One thing that is interesting about this is that they did also show off 2 new evolutions and 2 new variants. So the variants, I think we kind of could have expected. There's a new version of Growlithe that's like a very like poofy version of Growlithe, Hisuian Growlithe, and also Hisuian Braviary, which is the Pokemon that you kind of like paraglide off of. I wonder where they got that inspiration from. But they also they showed off 2 new Pokemon, and one of them's like this white snowy reindeer. I'm like, that just looks like Stantler, and then I'm learned, oh, it's an evolution of Stantler. I just thought that was interesting because like if this is going to have like its own series of, let's say it has 30 new Pokemon or 20 new Pokemon and 10 new variants, it's like, have we had a spin-off game that has been in that place where it's adding to the Pokedex?
Yes.
That kind of
Yes.
Go ahead.
Basically,
What am I forgetting?
Manaphy was first shown off in Pokemon Ranger, and Bonsly and Munchlax were first shown off in Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness.
Oh, okay. I take it back. I was gonna like say like, does this mean that maybe this is where like everything's gonna like this is going to be the main line going forward? And now it seems like I gotta like cool my jets a bit, where it's like no, they've done this before. But it kind of depends on like maybe how many they plan on introducing. If it ends up just being these few and a couple more, or if it ends up being like a mini new dex on its own.
Well, the other thing I'd say is they might be going more fast and loose with where they add new Pokemon or regional variants now that they've committed to not having the full Pokedex in any game going forward.
Yeah, you're right about that. This is the least important thing, but then this kind of makes me wonder like, did all the evolution of Stantler is called Wurdeer. It's like a reindeer. Did they all die out? Like, is that going to be? Why aren't there any Wurdeers anymore? Or whatever.
There's a new timeline, Pokemon Legends timeline. There's no
There's
rules.
also
No.
Pokemon
they
will kill
also
you.
Yeah.
they also introduced an evolution for Basculin called Basculegion, which you ride on as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead, James.
So yeah, I'm kind of interested in what the story for Arceus Legends is actually going to be, because there have been occasions where Pokemon stories have been kind of fascinating with like the connotations of them. A lot of times the stories have kind of been washed over because the games themselves were disappointing. Like X and Y's story like has some really weird connotations, like the fact that the player character is immortal at the end of the game. But
I do not know the context of
I
that.
like
but
retain nothing.
But one thing that fascinates me about Arceus Legends is that for whatever reason you're part of like the Galaxy Expedition team or whatnot.
that is that when you read that, I thought that was weird phrasing. Like, do they have
Yeah.
a concept of a galaxy?
Well, no,
At
but
that
the thing
point?
is that the evil team in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum was Team Galactic. And
Huh.
the leader of the
Hmm.
Galaxy Expedition team seems like a very, very distant ancestor or related to like Cyrus, the main antagonist of Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. And one of the things in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, specifically Platinum, is that Team Galactic wants to gain control of the time and space Pokemon so they can make a new universe. So, and there's been some really, really weird stuff with alternate universes in Pokemon story before. Is it this maybe not necessarily a prequel, but actually a stealth sequel where it's literally like, no, this is actually an entirely new timeline based off of Cyrus winning.
This
or
is
something.
like, I feel like this is like way too up its own butt for Pokemon or something like that. But
I would agree with you, but again, it is canon that the protagonist of X and Y literally ends the game being immortal.
Look, Brian, you need to play this game so you understand the rest of the Pokemon cinematic universe going forward.
well,
Okay, it's
actually,
mandatory.
I was actually going to kind of go on that. So, like, okay, so the other game that we were going to talk about briefly, even though I think people are less excited about it, is obviously the remaster, remake, whatever you want to call them, for
Wait a second,
Pokemon
wait a second.
Brilliant Time. Go ahead.
I still want to talk about the actual gameplay. I haven't given my thoughts on the
No,
gameplay.
no. I have a place that I'm going to with this. So, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are retellings, reimaginings of those stories. And like, is it gonna be where it's like if you got to get the full picture, you got to play all of these because they all like tether together in some like multiverse thing? So, like, I don't know if they'll
Let
do
the
anything
kids
that ties
enjoy
them together.
Pokemon without having to be tied to some weird series, canonical theory crafting. You
I
guys
just
are
want a
crafting.
pet Pikachu.
Yeah.
All right, James. Here's before I go on another tangent. Talk about what you want to talk about.
I feel like a lot of people have been saying that even if like Arceus Legends gameplay is just like catching Pokemon, they've been saying that, oh, that's boring. But no, I think what they showed off in the trailer really kind of argues the opposite. They even pointed out how different Pokemon will react to you differently. And like part of the fun will be figuring out how to even engage with a Pokemon before you can even battle it so you can start catching it. And I feel like a lot of people are glossing over that. And it's like one of the things that, to me, for like an open world Pokemon game, was one of the things I really wanted to see, where it's like not just finding the Pokemon, but it's like each Pokemon has their own unique behavior, or groups of Pokemon have their own unique behavior. Because honestly, I'll be honest, I don't expect every Pokemon to truly have unique behavior in this game. There will be like different classes of it and all that stuff. But I think that's interesting. I doubt it's just going to be like catching Pokemon, because there is a story involved and there's probably going to be stuff like that. I'm really interested to see where this game goes.
I definitely think there's potential.
Yeah.
Like I'm imagining like a Gyarados that's deep in the bottom of an ocean or in the middle of a lake, and you can't get to them unless you tier up some other aquatic Pokemon first, and then you got to get them on your side until you have like maybe you're on this Basculegion thing, and then you swim out to where the Gyarados is, and there's your first attempt to get it, or like there's a Pokemon that has a roost way high up, and you got to find another. You have to tier up your flying Pokemon to get. I don't know. Like I'm very much in like speculation mode, where I feel like they could, if they end up having like this really cool progression, like I finally got the Skarmory or something that lives at the top of some mountain, because I decided to get there on a Pidgeotto or whatever. But I feel like if that's the sort of how the progression feels, I think there's something there that's different enough from the main games to feel like a truly unique experience. But of course, we'll have to kind of see if that's where it ends up, or if it ends up somewhere a little bit more simple than that.
Yeah.
Now, can we talk about the Shining and Pearl remakes now? Or
Now
remasters?
we talk about we need to talk about how Pokemon Unite fits into the canon now. How it's alternate universe too.
Yes.
Who's the best EV?
The best EV is Vaporeon.
Umbreon,
Jolteon.
Espeon.
We're all in agreement. Okay.
I feel like I'm the only one that actually likes Leafeon.
No, I like Leafeon.
I brought that up because they added Sylveon to Unite, and some people are like, Sylveon's great, and some people are like, Sylveon sucks. Oh, okay.
So
Sylveon is great. I've never
played
played that game, but he's great. So, do we have any similar level of excitement for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl? I think because obviously the nature of this game is a remaster. I keep saying remaster, but it is kind of built from the ground up. So it's a remake, right? But it's a remake with like a limited scope. Like sometimes remake has this connotation where it's going to be wider and bigger and taller and faster than what it was, and now it's kind of just like it's the same game packaged differently, it feels like. Anyways, so the details here were a little bit more. Obviously, Arceus is a brand new experience. They could go into like what the game looks like, how it plays, and we could speculate about how it progresses, and story considerations, I guess, now are on the table, or things like that. Where here it's just kind of like, do you remember the underground from the Sinnoh region? Well, that's back, only now it's expanded. Also, because we've added character customization in later games, like your outfit, now you can do that in the Sinnoh region. Like, it seems like it's just a lot more targeted, where you have to say, like, remember this in Sinnoh region? Well, now it's slightly different or better. It's just, there's less to latch onto here, I feel like. There's nothing here that says, like, I want to re-experience this. At least that's my takeaway. I don't know if anyone else is more excited about this.
I hate being reminded of the game's box art. That like when they showed like they reminded us of the box art again at the end of like, God, man,
Lego toys screaming into the air.
Yeah.
The box art looks like the Pokemon card game render stuff. It looks really weird.
I'm of two minds about the art style. On one hand, I completely understand and even sympathize with a bunch of people that have been saying, oh, they're disappointed about it, because you have to understand that every other Pokemon remake that's come out has brought the visuals of the game and the scope of the game up with the current generation. Like Fire Red and Leaf Green looked better than Ruby and Sapphire and added in a ton of additional content. Heart Gold and Soul Silver added in parts of the Platinum content and also brought the game visually up to standard with Pokemon Platinum. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, people had some issues with it, but like it still looked better than X and Y and had its own like additional scope and even had the whole like Latios thing where you could like fly it around the region, like, which was really cool. So a lot of people were expecting for a Diamond and Pearl remake to be more along the lines of Pokemon Sword and Shield, where it's like full 3D. It's not like an isometric view. It's got stuff like wild areas, or at least it's more akin to something like the previous remakes, where it's bringing the game up to speed with the current generation. Whereas there's nothing specifically in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl that doesn't look like it couldn't have been a Generation 7 game instead of a Generation 8 game, like Pokemon terms. It's isometric. It's a very, what's the best way of putting it? It's a very it's a very respectful remake in the sense that it doesn't deviate much from the original concept, and both good and ill. I
So
think
basically, what I said is like, if you've already experienced this game, then because of what you're saying about what it looks like its scope is, of course, it doesn't feel like there's a reason to revisit it, or it's like, it's just the same thing in a different coat of paint.
yeah, and it's like I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But I also completely understand the people that have been upset about that, because if you're a big Diamond and Pearl fan, if you grew up on Generation 4 like me, and you wanted to see a big, exciting remake for the games, like you might have remembered from Heart Gold and Soul Silver, or even Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, this feels like a step back. And the expectation was in one place, but what they're delivering is completely different, and in a lot of ways looks like less budget than like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. On the other hand, though, I think I completely understand why they went for this, and I think from if we're looking at the nature of just the content in the game, I think it's going to be great. Even if they don't add in the platinum content, which I think most people have given up hope on these remakes incorporating the third version content ever again after Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. It's unfortunate, but I think it makes a lot more sense when you consider the fact that this is the first mainline game that's being outsourced. And because of that, I think they wanted the remakes to be a more pared back experience, specifically so they can get those developers kind of up to speed, giving them a
That actually
more
is a good point that
softball,
I forgot to bring up.
yeah, like a more softball project so that they can get up to speed with Pokemon, get used to the tools, and then once Game Freak continues working on whatever they want to work on, whether it's even mainline Pokemon or if they're going to continue with more spin-offs with like Arceus Legends, suddenly you have a team that's like grit their teeth on a project now, and then they can kind of get alongside Game Freak, which is something that people have been asking for a long time. Give a developer that's not just Game Freak reins to the series, and when you consider that, it makes a lot of sense why the remake would be pared back. And it hurts, but I think in the long run, it's probably for the best that they were given this softball project so they could ramp up and be given the opportunity to really grow into the role. If
No, that
makes
actually
sense.
is like a really comprehensive look about what their long-term plans might be. Maybe we end up in a place where they end up doing like the Call of Duty thing. I can't believe I'm bringing up Call of Duty twice in this podcast. Where they like leapfrog development, where they end up giving these, because right at Sword and Shield was kind of like at this inflection point where people were expecting finally a console Pokemon game that that wasn't a spin-off, like a mainline game for the Switch, and people were disappointed in it. And a lot of people pointed to the fact, well, it only had a year of development time, or not a year, but it had the same amount of development time as everything else for this basically annual series. And now maybe if they've got another set of hands on board to handle like whatever the Gen 5 revisit's going to look like. They can have this team work on that while they work on Arceus 2 or Legends, some other legendary Pokemon. So maybe this does actually have some like far-reaching consequences in a good way. So where they're actually planning out development's getting harder and longer, and we don't know like if we can manage an annual series. We already kind of saw that they skipped and they only did DLC for the most recent stuff for the Sword and Shield. So
is that really
maybe there is a plan
skipping?
there.
Is that really skipping if the scope is basically the same as like a third entry?
Is that what your take on the DLC was? Is that it felt substantial enough to say that?
Well, yeah, because I'd say that the Sword and Shield expansion pass added more to the game than a traditional third entry usually would. So,
Oh, okay. I take it back. They haven't taken a year off since 1998 or whatever. Maybe they need to, or maybe they're having this new ILCA. I forget what that stands for, but having them on board working on the Pokemon series might be helpful in the long run. And this is just kind of getting them out the gate, getting their start.
Now, this is just a dumb, like, off-topic thing, but in terms of the Call of Duty developers, they don't really even swap teams anymore. The different teams work on different parts of Call of Duty now.
That's true. They were in the
like
paradigm
Vanguard.
before.
Vanguard is made by Sledgehammer Games, and then the zombie mode is Treyarch, and then Infinity Ward does the Warzone content, which will have new Vanguard Warzone content. So it's just kind of like they all work on all of it, like at the same time now.
Well, let's
Yay.
hope that Game Freak and ILCA and all that avoid that for a few different reasons. Any other final thoughts on what we saw for the two upcoming Pokemon games?
Yeah, I'm not interested in the remakes, really. I am interested in Arceus, though.
Sounds like we're kind of in a bit of a consensus there.
Speaking of revisiting,
Thank you, Josh.
mhm.
So there's a great harddrive.net, which is a satire site headline that says, like, the Elder Scrolls Skyrim was released on this day 9 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and once more this year, because Skyrim Anniversary Edition is being released on November 11th on the 10th anniversary of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. So they've done it again. When we thought there was no other ways after the Alexa release, and didn't they have some other weird ass releases for Skyrim? We had a Switch version, a VR version. They're doing it again. Skyrim is getting like its 11th or 12th version.
Where's it coming out on?
It's coming out on. So this is Adam, who actually covered this news for us, had to do a bit of digging because it's not a next gen version of the game. It is a PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC version that will and then just use the standard cross-gen compatibility of both platforms to be on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series.
That's
So
crazy. I didn't know that.
there's mixed messaging here. Like, for example, so okay, they announced Skyrim Anniversary Edition. On the PlayStation blog post, they say it's coming out, so they're not going to mention any other platform, of course. They say it's coming out for PlayStation 4 with backwards compatibility on PlayStation 5. Like, that's how they put it from Bethesda. Like, oh, so it's a PlayStation 4 game. Okay. But like, if you go to their website, they just say it's coming out for PS5, PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. And like, oh, it's coming out for all of them? Like, is it native? Is it just a backwards compatibility thing? You know, it depends on where you look.
That is you bring up a really irritating point, because like game publishers are getting more and more like not being transparent about whether their upcoming game is being natively released on these new platforms or not. Like, they just kind of put them on the list of platforms with no indication whether they're actually native to it, because these platforms just run those games anyway, whether they're native or not.
Yeah, they just slap on the PS5 logo because if it's a PS4 game, it'll work on a PS5. So, anyways, so what this Anniversary Edition is, it's the same as the Special Edition. So everything that came with the Special Edition, years ago, with all the expansions and all that, plus it has a survival mode, which is apparently like a mod, but now official, and fishing. So like, those are included for free in the Anniversary Edition. So now there's
free fishing. Oh, okay, might be good here again.
So like, you can those you can get like included, but if the upgrade itself to the Anniversary Edition is actually a paid upgrade. Like, if you already own Special Edition, it's a paid upgrade. to get the anniversary edition, and it's everything that the special edition has, except it has like 500 pieces of content from like the creator content. I forget what they call it
Creation
exactly. Creation Club, and so it's like a mod bundle edition. Like that's what it is.
Is it going to be like a separate entry? Like if you get it on Steam, is it going to be like a separate entry from Skyrim already? It's going to be the Skyrim Anniversary Edition as a separate entry. Then
I guess
weird.
It's not clear at all. It seems like
Okay.
it, and it's just weird. So like, I haven't followed up because they've been trying as these games have been more popular on console. They've been trying to make the modding tools more, conducive and easy, and maybe like have a lower barrier of entry. So I think that's kind of what this Creation Club was, where some of the stuff on the Creation Club, as far as I understand, is actually made by Bethesda and then like their partners. So I don't know if that's literally like they just get someone to sign and say, "How we can now use your mod" or whatever. But the fact that this is basically Skyrim Special Edition Mod Pack Edition, plus all the official DLCs like Dragonborn or whatever the other ones were called, Dragonborn, Dawnguard, Hearthfire. It's just weird to me because that tells me like if this is, and the fishing is like, it was originally a mod, the survival version edition was originally a mod, Creation Club content, and it also has like new quests, new areas, and all the stuff that you would normally expect. But when I see that, I'm almost kind of like put off a bit because that tells me that this is just whenever I play like these sorts of games, I usually tend to avoid the content type mods because like the quests or the writing or adding new story or new characters, because there's such an uneven level of quality. Whenever you have fans making stuff, I find that it ends up being like a lot of frosting and a little cake. And I think I've used that comparison before, where it might just feel like really uneven, or you end up getting a mod. Like, wouldn't it be cool if you fought 2 dragons at the top of a volcano or something?
Oh yeah.
And they just like, I feel like, is it going to feel like a really weird where you have like the base story, you have the original quests that kind of were filtered through, but then you have like this weird added stuff peppered in where people are trying to like one up each other and like have different levels of skill in their writing or different levels of interesting ideas. Where is it going to just feel like this really uneven experience, or do they like curate it in some way where you can't tell? It just almost feels like I don't know if I'm interested in a game where they just say, now you've got 200 new quests made by different peoples of different talents just jammed in there, and it's going to be really weird. And like, that's to me, for some reason, just puts me off.
Brian, you need to calm out. It just works. Okay.
But and the one thing that I also know is going to happen is like people are going to like start selling their own, like, I spent 1,800 hours modding this game and this is what I would have done. I can already feel
I
like
actually
that
do know people who have bought Skyrim or Special Edition, spent like a weekend preparing mods for it, like all these like post-processing content tweaks and everything to the game, and then they like play it for a day. Like, actually, I'm good. It's like, oh,
which is fine if that's what you enjoy about it. That's fine. But then I wonder, like, those people aren't going to be paying the anniversary edition because they'd rather have the customization of tinkering on their own rather than just getting like this deck that Bethesda decided is what people want. Like, you want fishing, right? And you want these 500 that we've picked for you. And I do wonder, like, are people going to take this anniversary edition and then mod on top of that? I bet it's already kind of soupy where you've got like the original mods and the special edition mods, and now you're going to have anniversary edition mods or whatever. So yeah, I wonder just what the landscape, like how it's going to all shimmy out. Will people like take to this, or will people ignore it? I wonder how well it's going to do. Chances are it's going to do.
Have they commented about like any mod support on the console versions of the anniversary edition at all?
No. Not as far as I know.
Yeah, it's something that they've kind of been like, they've voiced their support for it in general, but I don't know if they specifically talk about this anniversary edition.
Well, someone pointed out on Twitter that with this anniversary edition, it has now surpassed Resident Evil 4 as the most re-released game ever.
By
I
what?
bet Resident Evil 4 will catch up in like a month. Like, quick, fridge edition.
Well, wait a second. Wait a second. I don't think it's the most re-released game ever, because Jaw Muncher was literally just comparing it to RE4. Doom has definitely been ported more places than Skyrim.
Oh, okay.
But to know that the RE4 and Skyrim are the same tier.
Pretty good.
I don't know, like, if you haven't played Skyrim before, I know people like meme on it for being like really kind of pared back and simple, and I do think it's actually got some really good ideas in it. So if you haven't played it before, I guess why not wait for this? But even then, I still wonder. Like, it all depends on like what they add. Like, it depends on like the quality of this Creation Club stuff, or how easily you can ignore it if you don't like it. It's just so hard to gauge like what it's going to feel like with all that stuff packed in. They say 500 pieces of unique content from Creation Club, including pre-existing and new quests, dungeons, bosses, weapons, spells, and more. Will that feel natural, or will it feel like this weird Frankenstein's monster thing? We don't know until we know. So I don't know why I'm like hung up on that, but
A momentous occasion, man.
yeah, when I want to mod a game like this, I want to have like a say in it. Where this is just kind of like we just decided for you. It's just kind of weird to me.
I just can't imagine wanting to play Skyrim again. Like, I don't get it.
Are we sure that these are really final thoughts, or it's just another release until 5 years from now when you see it again somewhere?
PS5 Real Edition. Oh wait, no.
Stadia, Amazon Luna.
Wait.
There's still other platforms for Skyrim can come.
I
Stadia?
actually wouldn't be surprised if they did like a native version, Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim Anniversary Edition native for next gen Anniversary Edition, like instead of a backwards compat.
It makes me feel sick.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Definitively definitive for real this time edition.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested. I'm more interested to see how this game does in terms of A, just sales, and B, like how people latch onto it in terms of tinkering with it, like they have with the other two main versions of the game.
Well,
But
Elder
more
Scrolls
interested in
community
that
is
than
hungry right
anything
now.
else.
If they're not playing the MMO, they have to wait an eternity till 6. So maybe this is what they want.
One thing that they don't really focus a lot on visuals or performance. It's they focus on content, quests, bosses, dungeons, things like that. Where I wonder if you load this game up and then you load Special Edition up and put them side by side without tinkering anything else, is there a visual difference or no? Like they don't, unless I missed it. I don't think they really focused on like we adjusted the lighting or we adjusted the post processing or we added ambient inclusion. They didn't really focus on that. It's all
we'll have you covered within the first week of that.
Yeah. Not that it really matters, because even if they did, people would just have their own like custom lighting mods that they already love that they'd probably just use instead. But maybe that's why they avoided it.
You're just making me imagine like this game will be a nightmare to tinker for, because like if you just want like the basic spirits, you load it up and then you just have this option of like, how do you want your lighting? And there's like 40 different options for your lighting.
Man, I'm just thinking that if this still has mod support, which I think it will, because why wouldn't it? And they update the API, at least on the Xbox version, to DX12 Ultimate. That, like, even if there's not ray tracing in Skyrim now, if they use that API, people will figure out a way to make it have a ray traced lighting mode.
It's kind of weird because you'll end up with kind of like these tiers. Like, this is the best you can make Skyrim Old Rim Edition look. This is the best you can make Special Edition look, but with Anniversary Edition, you can add this to it, ray tracing or whatever. So you're gonna end up with I bet it's weird to like go back in history and like catalog all the YouTube videos where they're like, I slathered 3,000 mods on it, and this is what I got, and then every year that has to be changed because of an edition like this or because of a new modding technique or whatever. I bet that's kind of a hard rat race to kind of keep up with, and now you've got a new leg of the race to deal with the Anniversary Edition. I'm eager to follow this, not to play it, but to follow this, see just what happens to it. Here's kind of a bit of a blast from the past, something that we last looked at in February, I think. This is the game from Game Science, Chinese indie studio, Black Myth Wukong. It was demoed earlier and I think it was revealed late last year, and then it had another little bit of a look in earlier this year, basically highlighting a very Journey to the West, Dark Souls, Sekiro-esque title that had really strong visuals and really like high level of polish for a game that doesn't look like it's going to come out until like 2023. Basically, just kind of a surprise out of nowhere, big, not big budget because it's an indie studio, but with that sort of appeal for a Souls type game. And we have another 12 minutes to look at kind of out of the blue this week, where they announced that Black Myth Wukong will shift over to development on Unreal Engine 5. And with that announcement, they did basically like an engine. Some people called it a trailer, but I think some people went back to correct that it's more like an engine showcase, where we got like 12 minutes of footage of Black Myth Wukong on Unreal Engine 5. So I know a lot of people have been sharing this around thinking that it looks really stellar. Some people have said it looks better than anything that's released so far. I think it looks good, but not like a notch above anything else we've seen. Anyone have any like initial takes about what they saw on the gameplay from Black Myth Wukong?
I wouldn't have anything to say about the gameplay, but it's got the lore really accurate. How Wukong could do all the transformation and all that stuff, which a lot of people seem to overlook.
Yeah, I think that's the most exciting thing about the game is like they're really being like accurate to the mythology, the source mythology of the game, because a lot of like Journey of the West video games, like they just kind of take inspiration for the core story, but not really ever tackle it. It's like it's kind of they look to it, but then they go their own way with it. While this one,
Okay, so I know in terms of the mythology, so IGN seems to have been briefed on the game. They actually like leaked it early, like they posted 12 hours early accidentally, and then they had to retract it and then post it on time. So it seems like they had information ahead of time. And I know in their breakdown, they actually do say that the main character here is not Wukong, that it's actually just another monkey, like following Wukong's footsteps. So like similar, but it's not him. Like that's just what IGN says, and you know I give them some trust that they were briefed on this. So like if they didn't tell me that, I'd be like, that's definitely Wukong. Who else would it?
Yeah, that's like,
right?
that's new news to me.
That's what they said. So it's like
yeah.
I'm just mentioning that's what they said.
Oh,
so
interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's graphically impressive. It's cool that they're moving to Unreal Engine 5 and saying what they can. Obviously, this is still early days of like, who knows what the final product will look like. I think it's kind of rough around the edges when it comes to like hit impact and whatnot. But it's that's not the point. It's like prototype footage that's not indicative of the final game and whatnot. It'll be cool to see, but for me at the moment, it's hard for me to like keep hold excitement for this game because it's so far off. It's still
I mean,
like no pun intended, but it still feels like a myth to me in this stage of development.
Just keep your expectation in check, and you won't be disappointed.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like it's promising. It's really cool to see that like this small development team really like being very ambitious with this game, and I'm rooting for them.
And they did show like a few things that they feel very tech demo-y, where it's like, gee whiz, look what we can do. Where they do like he's spinning his staff like while a bunch of leaves are floating towards him, and they kind of like swirl around the staff, and like their trajectory is altered by the movement of the weapon, stuff like that. Where it's like, I don't know if you needed to
information and everything like that, showcasing.
Good. I was really impressed with the snow effects. Is there any game like that?
I think a lot of the Sony first party stuff has done that. Yeah.
A Frozen Wild expansion, like kind of not to this level, but a lot of games have messed with it, like the recent Tomb Raider games have messed with snow. Yep.
Yeah, and then there's still no release date on this. I think IGN said 2023, but it feels like it's just kind of like they're not ready to announce, so we don't have a window announced. It looks promising. It's kind of cool to see someone in this space, like from kind of bringing in a perspective that we don't have from the with a real look in this Chinese like mythos of the Journey to the West.
And Game Science is a Chinese developer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
When that was announced last August, there was a few. How do I say this? There had been some comments from the CEO that people had pointed out as being like really sexist and really crude, and so some people might be interested in that. I haven't seen anyone report on it recently this year with this new announcement, but I just do know that some people have said that this indie studio has not. It's kind of burned some bridges with like prospective devs that they interviewed but didn't hire or refused to hire. So
I had no idea about this.
Yeah, so I don't know any details than that. I've not looked into this myself, but I did see some articles from August 2020 that brought that up. So just things to keep in mind.
Unfortunately, when it's like a Chinese dev or a foreign dev to us, it's not, like we don't always get insight to like their workplace cultures. But yeah, I did see some reports that this Chinese indie studio has apparently got a bit of a boys club mentality, allegedly.
Yeah, and we only get their English-facing marketing, so we kind of get like the sanitized version. So you really have to dig to see more of that. So it's there to dig into if you're inclined. But figure that we should bring that up.
Yeah,
'cause it is
I
helpful.
saw that like pop up when this new trailer came up, and like you said, this was actually like we're commented on last year, and I didn't have any idea. So, bringing awareness of that, there have been some criticisms of the CEO and this dev team and how some of the comments they've made.
Chow, here's something for you. We've got
And
a
Jess.
release date. Oh, and Jess. Oh yeah, and Jess. I forgot that Jess was big into Genshin Impact. Chow and Jess. We've got a release date for version 2.1. It is coming out on September 1st, and this is adding a few of the. I know Chow talked previously about how not all of the Inazuma
Yeah.
region was available at first, but they're adding to it. They're adding 3 new characters and Aloy and fishing. So this is another game that's adding fishing in an update. So we'll start with Chow, and then we'll go to Jess. So Chow, what are we looking forward to in 2.1?
I'm more interested in the fishing, to be honest with you.
Oh,
I
Me
feel like
too!
RPG without fishing is just not quite the same, no matter how tedious or how good it is. It needs fishing. All games needs fishing.
All right, tell me, either you or Jess, tell me how fishing is going to work in Genshin. What are they doing to fishing here?
Actually, I have no idea how it works. I just saw
You're
there was
just,
Oh.
you're just excited for
Okay,
it,
okay.
principle.
Okay,
Okay, I watched the live stream, so I could tell you a little bit about it. So,
okay, hit me.
it's a little bit like the way it looked like is like I think there's maybe kind of Harvest Moonish kind of thing where it looks like like kind of arch where you're going to throw the line. So
Okay.
as you're casting the line, there's a little bit of a arch to tell you like about where the bait
So
is going to
it's more
land.
like it's not exactly. It's more like an educated guess.
Yeah, I guess it's like it's a little bit more concrete. I would think like if it's accurate where the line will go. But
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of like cast the line based on this arch going into the water. And then you can pick different sorts of bait, and you will be able to catch different sorts of fish. Apparently, you'll be able to also cook them. Although I'm kind of wondering if that means the recipes will expand. Like there'll be different kinds of recipes that you can cook with these fish. Because right now there's only one kind, and
every time you pick up a fish, it always says this one type, right? So maybe
Yeah, it looks like
there's
salmon.
types, maybe.
Is there like a sort of leveling to it? Like the more you fish, like your fishing level goes up. Is there anything like that?
I didn't quite see. I wouldn't be surprised if there was, though. I think this is also a big deal because honestly, I'm not a big fan of how you get fish right now. Because right now, you need to basically jump in the water and swim after them.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, you can also raise fish like as a pet.
Oh yeah,
What?
in your teapot house.
So you can
What?
like
This is what the press release says.
You
Fishing
can
will
make-
be introduced with version 2.1. Players can soon go for angling a variety of fishes across the continent of Teyvat. They can be used to produce fish meat or exchange for rewards and new fishing rods from the Fishing Association. With the pool of
New
Sapphire
fishing rods.
Grace, a new furnishing added to the Serenity pot system, players can now raise ornamental fish in their personal realm.
What? That sounds ridiculous.
I mean, the end game for Final Fantasy 14 is fishing, so there is fishing in here. Fishing Ultimate.
I wouldn't
Oh,
say
yeah.
that fishing is the end game in 14. That is definitely house decor.
Honestly, I'm kind of interested in how this will add to the Genshin economy, basically, because people are always trying to exchange these materials for like for ascension items and things like that. Like typically, people get excited for whatever items the events are giving us. So maybe if there's I don't know if you'll be able to exchange them for helpful items that will help with your team or something like that.
That'd be
other than
really
cooking.
funny if the long term farm in Genshin is just fishing because there's like maybe it's like some sort of fishing shop that refreshes every month or something. For example, it'd be funny if that was like part of the progression line. It's like, yep, fish, motherfucker.
Camp at the spot and wait for 2 days.
I'm also wondering if there'll be like these crazy rare fish, like in Animal Crossing, where you suddenly just pull out like a 5-foot long fish.
Oh shit, you're right. Always a possibility. But what else is coming? They introduced some new characters. What can we look forward to?
Well,
And,
apparently it's supposed to finish the story arc, so I thought maybe they're just putting all the islands now. So, like, I'm not sure it's too quick. I thought they would like drip feed it a little bit more, but I don't know.
Who are the new characters?
There's Kokomi. There is What was it? How do you say her name? Yay. And who else was there?
I believe there's
There's a
the
person
Raiden
named
Shogun.
Raiden Shogun. Yeah.
Yeah, the Raiden Shogun.
There's
Um,
Kujo Sarah, if I remember.
yeah, that's her right hand woman basically, and they're both Electro users. So, I did hear something about Electro, getting a buff last update, but I'm not really sure how that. I haven't really played that much with my Electro character, so I haven't really noticed a difference if they did end up doing that. It did make me wonder during the live stream if after, in preparation for these new Electro characters that are supposed to be strong, if they did that on purpose.
No, I
Right
don't think they buffed
now-
the element yet. They just tweaked some of the damage numbers, but the element hasn't been buffed.
Oh,
It's a
okay,
little
so they
bit
didn't
better.
really do it yet.
Like, I'm not sure if they're gonna wait for the Archon to show up before they do the actual buffing, because people would be disappointed if their new, the new Archon is not over the top, overpowered, considering how much they've been hyping her up, right?
Oh yeah, people are still mad about Yoimiya. Apparently that's still a thing on Reddit where people are like, her kit is a mess, and people are sending tons of complaints to MiHoYo about it.
Well, I work with Song Lee, so it doesn't hurt to try again, right? Outrage always does something sometimes.
Yeah.
I am okay. So I'm interested because Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn is coming on September 1st to Genshin. I forgot. Did Horizon get a Japanese voiceover when it initially released on the PS4?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, yeah, because I was looking, I wonder who's the Japanese voice for Aloy. It's Ayahi Takagaki, and she's a very big.
This is just kind of a random thing, but I remember when
Yeah.
I was playing Horizon Zero Dawn, I played it shortly after launch, 3 months after launch. I was actually looking up something and I couldn't find it, and I found a Japanese YouTube video who was playing through it. And they had the
Nice.
Japanese voices and everything, so they had it.
Nice.
I know her from Gundam 00. That's about it.
She's famous for her roles in Gundam. She's very famous in Simple Gear, and yeah, that's probably her most well-known role at the moment is the Simple Gear series. But yeah, they continue to have really big voice actresses on here. I'm looking through it. Raiden is voiced by Miyuki Sawashiro. Kokomi is voiced by Suzuko Memori.
Oh yeah.
She's crazy.
Oh, sorry. There's a lot more, honestly, too. I don't know. There's Scaramouche cameo, and he's a big character. People have been waiting to come back for a while. He outtrended the 3 characters that were announced for the banners yesterday.
Was he the mysterious? I looked at the trailer, but was he the mysterious one in the hat wearing the hat?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me, I'm obviously not going to spoil, but why is he so popular?
He is evil Lloyd Bannings because he got the same Japanese VA.
Okay, I know everything.
Yeah,
now.
Chow would know better because unfortunately I did miss the event that he was introduced, so I didn't get to interact with him.
You actually don't interact with him. He was a sly merchant, or he was disguised as a merchant. And Mona actually saves you from that moment before he could do anything dangerous. And people kind of hype him just because of his Japanese VA. That's what I feel. But I don't think he has much of a screen time presence to be relevant. That's in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally get it, but Genshin Twitter is just oh my god, this guy.
This guy showed up for 2
evil.
minutes. It's was it the current villain, Signoria, whatever? She is super popular, but what her character did in the storyline? She just steps on she just gives you the step on me vibe, and people apparently like that. So she's super popular, but she doesn't do anything.
I've never wanted to hear you say that ever.
One thing that's kind of funny, Scaramouche is I think he's originally I actually looked this up. I forgot the country, but he's an Italian comic clown character, is what he is in theater arts. Is who Scaramouche is. So it's kind of funny to hear him be this badass dude in Genshin. So
yeah,
whenever
he's trying to
Scaramouche,
assassinate you in a storyline,
he's
but
a
that got
clown.
foiled in 2 minutes. So, and we never see him again. So
Okay, and then there's actually there's also people on Twitter were kind of going crazy about this because they thought that a certain character might die. There was a hint that there's a possibility of a character dying because MiHoYo has killed off playable characters in the past.
Is that still just speculation at this point? We don't know if it's true.
Still speculation, although it's kind of I mean, it's possible, though I wouldn't know for sure. There's certain parts about this character's backstory that make it seem like it's thematically possible the way they presented it in the trailer too. So that's one of the other things. And then I think the other big thing is MiHoYo's the Genshin Impact anniversary coming up.
Oh my god, it's already anniversary time for that game. Jesus.
Yeah, apparently. I checked my account. It says I logged in 323 days. So
Oh my god.
Have you missed a day?
I have.
Oh, I'm
Uh-oh.
disappointed.
It's not FGO where I don't have to worry about login bonus for missing a day.
Have you missed a day, Jess?
Oh yeah, plenty. Like I come back to it every now and then. Like I was actually on a break from it for a bit, but now I'm back.
I do like how Jess is like, don't forget that it's also bringing this and that. Like she's making sure that we cover all the bases for what's coming in
I like it.
2.1.
Are you guys excited for 2.1?
Yeah, it looks like a beefy update, actually. It's not like the filler content they used to do back then. I'm just worried more about what comes after 2.1. Are we going to stuck with like 5 versions of like filler before we finally get some updates again?
Well, I remember when you were talking about like the updates were like a weird hide and seek game. It's like, this is what you get, enjoy it. And now it's like actually seems like it's really meaty story pushing stuff.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
it was a really big update with adding Inazuma.
You have fishing to tide you over now, dude. You don't
Oh
have to
yeah,
like.
that too.
So like, yeah, you don't need any other content now. Who cares about filler content? But you have fishing.
Waiting for 2.2 or 3.0 or whatever. Are you done fishing yet? Have you got the best rod? Or it depends on how grindy they make it.
I'm also waiting for more hangout events.
Oh yeah.
What are hangout events?
It's like this dating sim.
Dates.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's not that big a deal, but I like to the story
Alex wrote
quests
some
and
good
dating
guides.
events. Yeah,
Sorry.
they give you a little more insight into the characters and stuff. But yeah, we do have guides on the hangout events. I'm not sure if we have the most recent ones with Noelle too and Diona though.
Yeah, Alex went back to the game just to write some hangout event guides, so be sure to check that out.
It was really funny late last year when people were talking about Genshin. Like I still think it really has a strong fan base, but back when it launched, it was huge. I felt like it was everywhere, and like I would feel Alex like chiming in about how the game worked. I'm like, Alex, what are you doing? It just felt so out of character for him, but it was endearing in a way. So
Alex awoke to anime late last year is weird, dude. I was like, I don't know this guy anymore.
no, you'll have to convince him to come back for this stuff.
Only if they add football, he'll be back in.
I love our tangents. I'm just gonna say.
Only know.
Did you know Madden's
David
out?
Beckham.
Go play Madden.
Yo,
I like how
don't have faith. There's nothing like technically anything's technically possible. And next thing you know, they might have a collab with Madden. Okay.
Well, we already saw what game was it that had a collab with Rainbow Six Siege? Was it Arknights?
Arknights. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Like if that's on the table, anything's on the table. I think.
Yes.
I think the more surprising crossover was For Honor with Samurai Showdown.
Yeah. That was so funny. My favorite samurai, the For Honor Knight dude.
Yeah, crossovers are getting wild. Like I still am shocked that the Rick and Morty Fortnite crossover was real.
That was so
Well,
good.
Well, Fortnite's
Yeah.
big enough that they can just kind of cross over with whoever it wants. I feel like at this point.
That's a weird thing, right? Like Fortnite is not like popularizing the concept of a crossover, but like you can start feeling like the frequency of crossovers being more prevalent in the future because hey, it worked for Fortnite. This is what is getting new players in.
Well, I was
So-
gonna say it's funny we're talking about. Oh man, look at all those crossovers that Fortnite did, and then it's like, oh, did they cross over with Among Us? No, they just ripped it off.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I mean that's kind of not Fortnite's roots, but that's how they became popular. Because hey, they look at PUBG and they're like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
One final major news topic is something that came out of IGN Japan, actually, in an interview at the Chinese Games Developer Conference with the production team of the NieR series. This includes Yoko Taro, of course, alongside with Daichi Matsukawa, who is the Reincarnation director, producer. He's in charge of the Reincarnation mobile game. And then Ito Saki, who is the Toy Logic head, who headed up the NieR Replicant remaster, because Toy Logic was the developer there. I did not watch this interview myself, but I do know that Josh, big NieR nerd that he is, I say that endearingly, was definitely had his eye on this. And you said a few interesting kind of like little tidbits came out of this interview with IGN Japan. So just let me know like kind of what came out here.
It's not like a new game announcement or anything like that, but there's like a cool like behind the scenes tidbits. Like for one of the stories they mentioned when it came to like Automata's early development was there's like kind of like a bit of a compatibility period when Saito, the producer of the NieR series, he sent Yoko Taro to Osaka for 6 months to work together with Platinum Games under the same roof, and he mentioned that he wanted this to be a compatibility period because if this didn't go well, he was prepared to pull the plug on Automata's development period. And, like he would lose money, but he like if there's no compatibility between them, he was like just Automata would never have happened if it didn't go well with Taro working with Platinum Games there. And luckily it did because Taro worked well with Takahisa Tora of Platinum Games, and you'll know him because he was like the battle designer of Automata, and he was also involved in Astral Chain's development.
I was actually gonna say, like, do I say Astral Chain? It was Astral Chain, right? I didn't, but I don't want to
Yeah.
say it in case I was wrong. So
Yeah, so that was really cool. Another cool tidbit that came out of that was when it came to the NieR Replicant remaster remake, whatever version upgrade. The IGN Japan interviewer was asking, you know, as for Toy Logic, they work with collaboration with other companies, but what was the balance between nerves and comfort for this team? Were you all on edge, over like this kind of big reintroduction of NieR? And Itosaki, the director from Toy Logic, involved with that game, is like, yeah, they were really nervous because a lot of them, this is an interesting thing because we knew there was former Kavia staff at Toy Logic, but he mentions a lot of them were from Kavia. So, they're like he jokingly says, "Oh yeah, we were bullied by Taro terribly, during this development and whatnot." And that really stuck out to me because like he mentions like a good chunk of Toy Logic is from Kavia, not just a few of them. So I wonder,
Fabia being the original developer of NieR.
yeah,
Interesting. So I guess this is kind of a situation of like with Artoon going into Arzest or something like that.
yeah. So I wonder like if they're just gonna like Toy Logic will now be like the kind of like the spiritual sequel of Kavia now, and they'll be working on maybe former things that Kavia worked on moving forward. So
I know
like,
there is. I know there is speculation. Like, there's eventually going to be a NieR 3. Like,
Oh, yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
doubt. Who's going to make it? And I know some people who believe it's going to be Toy Logic, and it's not going to be Platinum because Platinum's not really interested in doing that many. Like, they want to do their own stuff. But
Mhm.
that's mostly speculation. But like,
Right.
Toy Logic's working on Replicant might have been some trial, like, warm up sort of thing. But who knows?
Honestly, I think that I would be perfectly okay with that because the gameplay in the Replicant remastered is really good. So
Yeah.
I think they're up to the task.
Yeah, I think I'd be fine with that too. And I also want to see like if they plan on revisiting past games and re-releasing them as well, or doing a version upgrade on the first Drakengard or something. That they would have to for Drakengard 3. They didn't work on it. Did they, or was it Access Games?
That was Access.
Okay. And so another thing they mentioned, and they gave a big shout out to 8.4 for always being on top of the localization of the NieR series in the West, and they said that a big thing for them, and we see this time and time again with localization, when it comes to like the struggles and tribulations of localization, but a big thing that really helped NieR be popularized and have a smooth localization process was the localizers 8.4 have like a glossary of terms for the NieR universe and whatnot, and so terminology is consistent with each title, and they are all on the same page of like, what does this mean in the NieR universe, this term, and can it be localized? When it comes to localization time, it's like, okay, we've seen this before. This would be the localization term we would employ for the script, English script, and whatnot. So that's
Similarly, Square Enix and 8.4, when I got the chance to talk to the Saga team just a few months ago, they pretty much said the exact same thing. Like, specifically, we worked on the Romancing Saga 2 translation, and it was not received well. So, on Romancing Saga 2 sounds like old people talking to each other on Facebook. But so for when Saga Scarlet Grace was releasing, they teamed up with 8.4, and they specifically mentioned they wanted the localization, they wanted a better quality English localization, and one of the things that 8.4 did was create a glossary for Saga. So, like, Square Enix in multiple ways has worked with 8.4. And it seems like glossaries are a pretty good idea for a term localization.
Especially for big RPG enduring series like this.
Yeah, to make sure they're consistent from
Yeah.
entry to entry.
And,
So while you guys talk, I've actually been watching the trailer, or not the trailer, the interview, the panel with the subtitles on in the section where they talk about localization, and it's just kind of cool on its face to see like this is obviously a Japanese interview for that audience, and they're still saying like they've been working with A4 for 10 years. They talked about the glossary, and it's all in positive light. I think it's just cool that they can say it. Like it's something that they're really proud of their working relationship, and it seems like that's no reason to not expect that it's going to be like that going forward.
Okay, I think the thing that really stuck out to me with this interview is like even if they're like from different walks, like the Saito and Taro obviously are kind of overseeing the whole thing, and then they now have Toy Logic involved with the series, and then they have Matsukawa from Applebot working on the NieR Reincarnation mobile game. There's a lot of rapport and collaboration between them. They all seem to be on the same page, when they're talking about like their philosophies about working with the series and working with each other. And there's a lot of like understanding and a lot of like just it's cool to see them like talk about it so frankly and so out of the open and whatnot. It's funny because Saito was like, yeah, we were really late on the bandwagon for NieR Reincarnation because he only went forward with it after he saw that Automatic sold 3 to 4 million copies. It's like, okay, we should probably make a smartphone game now over this. He's like, if he knew that it was gonna get that amount of traction way beforehand, he would have done it way earlier. He said, he was like, yeah, we're pretty late on that. So if you ever bought Automata or gifted it to someone, congratulations, you are responsible for reincarnation existing. Hope you're happy with that.
By the way, I have dropped reincarnation. I'm sorry.
You did it?
I've uninstalled.
Wow.
Basically, they did they announced a new story chapter, and I kind of feel like, man, there's nothing I want to do less than catch up again. So that's a sign that I should uninstall.
Burnout.
I kind of gotten my fill. I'd kind of learned how the gacha systems work. It was fun to learn, like genuinely figure out like, okay, now I have a little bit of a grounding to when people talk about similar games, what the terms mean and how it's organized. At least I have some sort of basic framework, but the gameplay wasn't hooking me. The story wasn't hooking me. I'm just like, all right, if I'm not having fun, I'll just drop it. But yeah, I'm glad I played it. But
it's it's definitely the global version of reincarnation is just a lot at the moment. Like I'm keeping up fairly well. It's easy for me because I know how these games work, and especially when they're very rapid pace. Like for example, like at the moment, like this game has only been out for maybe 23 days now. There's 11 full story chapters, and the Japanese servers at 12. 3 events are going on at the same time, all of their event shops, and grinding currency for them can be a very tedious process. Because you have
the fastest way to burn out your audience.
And then and it has 4 different banners, all with different limited characters on Raid Up, and these limited characters aren't shared in between banners, except for a few like the Automata collab. But the summer banner is its own separate thing, and the half anniversary banner all has its own separate limited characters as well. It's insane at the moment. Like they really, really want to catch up really fast. So this is probably like it's the most accelerated gacha game I've ever seen out of the gate.
I don't know, man. I think I've seen like Epic 7 catch up. Like they released a Japanese server like maybe a year and a half late, but they catched up now. But it wasn't like fast track as fast as what I'm hearing from Josh. It's like kind of like a slow pace. They just released a banner just like 1 week a little bit ahead, and just kind of slowly, trying to catch up.
Yeah, I really wonder what the long how the I don't know. I imagine they want to merge servers at some point, and make it one server only.
But I have a question. When did it came out in Japan?
It came out February of this year.
They didn't really need to fast track that hard, I don't think.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Part of the reason they fast tracked so hard is because they really wanted the summer event to land in summer, so it was only like a week or 2 behind, or maybe a month. So they were all. So that's kind of like feels like sort of that's what dictated their pace in some ways.
I kind of wish that they just kind of released this worldwide simultaneously, even if they had to push back the Japanese server launch. If it was going to lead to this, that's kind of my selfish take on it, because it just to me that makes more sense. But I'm not developing the game, so how would I know? But it's just crazy at the moment. I really wonder if this will pay off for them and how many. I wonder how many players are still like are willing to play this and hanging on. Like they're like it'll get probably better soon. Like once everything has kind of caught up to a certain degree. But man, right now it's just wow.
We do have a few smaller pieces of news in the back part here. There were a couple incidental updates for games that we've talked about on the podcast a few times. Shin Megami Tensei 5, first off, they did name some of the characters that were in that recently released Bethel trailer. Like the we now have a name for the Raido lookalike.
He's not Raido.
Yeah,
I'm not Raido.
yeah. His name is
by the way.
Shohei Yakumo. Shohei Yakumo. And then they also just detailed some more NPCs, some more of the characters that were shown in that recent trailer. A few gameplay features like the auto battle and quick mode. They showed off a new demon, but I think they've been showing off a new demon like every week or twice a week or something. So that's like not new. So
the new demon is it's a werewolf, but the Japanese name is translates to like loup-garou, which is the French word for a werewolf. But it's a werewolf. That's what it is.
Yeah, so we had talked about this game a few times. Obviously, it's one of the bigger releases of the holidays, but there was just more details on. Like, I feel like this is going to be a constant for the next couple of months. Is that they'll just keep drip feeding characters and names, and people will speculate what it means for the story and the progression of the game and things like that.
I guess the biggest thing out of this that people wanted confirmation on is like, hey, can you like since even though you're making the switch to 3D models and battles, like, can you like make battles still fast like in 4 and 4 Apocalypse? Because part of the charm in SMT 4 and 4 Apocalypse was battles ended quick. You could make them go by really fast because you didn't have to account for like actual animations to the demons when they were attacking and whatnot. And now all the footage we saw of 5 so far was like the battles are cool, they look really cool, but if I'm just trying to get from place A to point A to point B and I want it to be fast, I want these battles to go by quick, like in 4 Apocalypse. And they were like, yeah, there are options in the menu where you can turn off animations both for enemies and your party members to just kind of have battles fly by, and that's really cool to see.
We got kind of a similar update with Blue Reflection Second Light. So another game that has kind of been like a new detail every week or every other week. We talked previously about the character Hiyori, who is basically like a cameo crossover character from the anime, which is called, what is the anime called again? It is a Ray. Blue Reflection Ray. And now they've basically done a similar thing for another character from the anime, Mio Hirohara. So keeps kind of nailing this idea that the anime, the mobile game, and the sequel game are all tethered together in some weird way. So, like, if you want to get the full experience,
for those keeping track, this game, Second Light, it has its own protagonist. It has the protagonist of the first game. It has the main character from the anime, and it has the protagonist from the upcoming mobile game. So they're like all here in this game.
That's so weird. I feel like it's already weird because like in the Blue Reflection anime, the second half, like you already still like Lime and I forgot the other chick show up. They're like kind of like the guardians of the common from the first game, and they show up there. And I've been talking with some friends who are watching it who haven't played the first game. They're like, "Yeah, I'm already kind of lost." I'm like, "Yeah, it kind of relies on like first game knowledge to make sense of what's going on at this point."
And when they announced this, game, they announced it alongside the mobile game, and the anime was already announced before this point. But they said, like, "Oh, you can enjoy any of these separately." It's like, are you sure about this?
How sure are you?
So yeah.
So whoever signs up to review this, you've got a task on your plate because you're gonna have to watch the anime.
Yeah, Chow, you have
I
to
only
watch the
play the
anime
first
now.
game. That's it.
Good luck,
You have to watch the anime. It's your homework.
But I got the platinum trophy. Does that count?
Have fun marathoning.
Here's another game that we talked about last week. The surprise announcement of a new Shining Force title for mobile, Shining Force Heroes of Light and Darkness. So we kind of introduced the idea last week. This week, basically, very soon after that, we got the first real trailer for it. From what I understand, the art style is actually pretty faithful to the original Shining Force games. And Adam kind of harped on this a lot. It does that thing where like the character portraits are like marionettes, where they move on their like arm joints in a way that just seems like really like almost like Western mobile game style. It's really off-putting.
It's where they're not actually
so
like animated. It's just like different parts sort of rotate and stretch in different ways. And it's just like
they just take an artwork and they like modulate it to animate it in a way that seems very, very cheap. Like I think the
AI made
artwork
this
is
game.
kind of. Yeah, because I remember like ever since this game was announced, I've seen in various places in our Discord and a couple others like people like pulling up art from the old games. I know Chow has played the older games and saying, "Hey, it actually kind of looks respectably like faithful." It's just that the way that they implement it is off-putting. It's like I almost feel like I wish like there was a toggle like stop moving the
Turn off.
portraits. Just let the art just let the artwork stand on its own. I don't need it to like bob and weave as they're talking or whatever. Otherwise, I don't know if there's any other real takeaways from what we saw from the announcement of this game and the new trailer for it.
It has characters from the early games, so it's like a
First
all-star
2 games right now.
collab crossover thing, and it seems to have new characters as well. It's free to play, so that means there will be a gacha system. I know, like they haven't specifically said. They said it's going to release around the globe, specifically how they put it, and that they licensed it for release in North America and Europe, but they haven't like said anything otherwise in terms of English translation or release. So it seems like it's in the plans at least.
I feel like this
Alright, so
game.
kinda like all but confirmed.
I feel like this game came out of like, oh, Langrisser's doing well with its mobile game. Why don't we bring back Shining Force?
I think they came a little
Yes.
late.
So not
Dude.
even there's not even a Japanese release window. So
Dude,
it's just announced hot off the press.
They said 2022.
Oh, okay.
I just think of the Langrisser mobile game, and I look at this game, dude. That's all I think of. I'm like, oh yeah, it looks kind of like that game. I don't know. Good luck, I guess.
The last time I checked that game, it was doing really hot in Korea for some reason.
The Langrisser.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just know that game has like crazy freaking crossovers. Like it had like a Wataru crossover recently, but then it previously had like a Yu Yu Hakusho and Sakura Wars crossover. What?
And
What's going
don't
on?
forget the Cold Steel Free collab.
Oh yeah, they did that. I forgot.
Is the theme of this podcast like crossovers? Feels like a part of it is.
Maybe that's the title.
That's the life we live now. Okay.
I prefer the title R1 to B in the Tails demo impressions.
Me too.
All right, a couple other little news bits that just filtered in over the week. Biomutant. Remember when that was a topic of the podcast?
No.
George's favorite game of 2021. I heard.
This is actually, I think, legitimately good news. Biomutant has surpassed 1 million units sold, and development and marketing costs were recouped within a week of launch.
Good.
Like, regardless of your feelings of that game, that is just, I don't know how you could feel otherwise other than think that's wonderful news, because this was a smaller studio, a studio that deliberately like took their game out of the limelight to work on it and not crunch. Remember when it disappeared for like 9 months or 10, or was it over a year?
It was like
And it's
a
like
year,
30
yeah.
developers again. And the fact that they recouped all of their costs despite being a mixed reception is just like wonderful, I think. It's because now that maybe that was for most of that team, their first it was actually the first project under what was the studio name again? It was called something that like matched with
Experiment
it.
101, I think.
Right, because like that it kind of matches with the theme of the game.
Yeah.
But so the fact that they recoup their costs and will presumably start working on something else is actually like, it's great news. And
Yeah,
I am
agree.
still curious in this just to see like what my thoughts are rather than just adopt everyone else's opinions and make it my own. So at some point I will make space for this.
Like by any means, I still enjoyed it. I still have. Well, I wouldn't say I have fond memories of it because it wasn't that long ago. But I would, if you enjoyed it, I'd be like, more power to you. That's great. But I just feel like it didn't deliver on pretty much anything it promised. It was okay. But that's like fantastic news for them.
I think the big takeaway is like, hey, if the obviously developers are probably working on something new, they can now incorporate like, okay, what were the strengths and weaknesses we had of this first project,
Exactly.
and how can we,
Yeah.
make things better next time.
This next news bit is like almost the exact opposite thing in a way. So guys, do you remember Cyberpunk 2077? It feels weird. It feels like I'm like reaching from like another age to talk about that game again, even though it
yes.
didn't release that long ago.
Back in
So
1998, I remember Cyberpunk.
oh, I love that. But it has released a new patch, 1.3, which basically, if you go to the patch notes, it's like a giant list of fixes, like mostly related to quests. So kind of like the expected, like we're trying to ship this thing up and shape it into place that maybe should have already happened at some place. The difference with this patch is that it also kind of tries to like bring back people who have already played it by introducing like what feels like, or what reads like to me, like a very sliver of like new content, new DLCs. So first of all, the main thing of the patch is that it's a giant fix list, but they've also added Johnny Silverhand has a new outfit, which apparently you just like toggle in a menu. I haven't played this. I'm reading it from the patch notes. It says can be enabled in settings from the additional content tab. So it's just like a Tails costume. See, tying these ideas together.
Yeah, that's where they got it from. It's like, oh man, Tails has been doing this. Why can't we do this?
They added some more like jacket gear accessories for the main character V that they're added as rewards for quests that are already in the game. So it says like you will get the luminescent punk jacket after completing the ride. So it's like they're just taking existing quests and adding rewards, which is like, okay, that's
cool,
fine, I suppose.
Full cosmetic thing for my character that I always view in first person.
Yep.
Right.
And then there's a new car, and this actually like sticks out to me because I actually made a guide up on the site for all the cars in the game. So I'm like, damn it, now I gotta like reinstall the game and figure out what the details are for this new car. The Archer Quartz Bandit is a reward after completing Ghost Town, which, as far as I know, is an existing quest. So this DLC is kind of like very superfluous stuff. It's almost like pre-order bonus, only added 8 months after the fact. That's actually exactly what it is. It feels like this is like what you would normally get for a pre-order.
Are they still on their proposed roadmap thing, or are they off the rails from that roadmap?
Who knows?
Well, that roadmap was so like vague that they can kind of do what they want.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. There's no like,
aren't we in that like weird bar where it said like updates and improvements? Yeah. We're just kind of like, isn't that most games roadmaps where they'll just fix a few things? Only for them, it's like it has to be a roadmap because
I forgot there was no like time frame. It was just like kind of like just like a meter almost. It's like in this part of the meter, this will get done. It's like who knows what that meter represents, but we're in there right now. Like, okay,
I'm actually trying to find that roadmap to figure out like what George said about this console up. Okay, so
this year, right?
But between 2021 and 2022, literally 3/4 of it is this gray bar that says multiple updates and improvements. In the first part of that, it says free DLCs. So I guess that's the part we're at. So these DLCs are like cosmetics, and an unmeasured portion away from that, but still ahead of 2022, it says free next gen console update. So
all right, I guess let me get out my ruler. All right, within 2 centimeters, we're gonna get the next gen versions.
Yeah, figure out what date it is, how many days we have left until the end of the year, and then measure how close the next gen console update is, and you'll be an insider. You'll know when it's coming.
I haven't played Cyberpunk yet, and I want to. Even if it seems like some people like it, but it seems like a lot of people were disappointed in it. I kind of just want to like experience it for myself.
It's okay.
But I figured, why not wait for these? Like they just released a gigantic list of updates, mostly just fixing the game. I actually did watch the stream that they did for the updates as well, and they were basically pretty open about it. Like they acknowledged that people were disappointed in the game and everything, and they actually did mention that we have a lot more we want to do in terms of fixes. So it's like there's more coming, in that sense.
My favorite part of this is that where was it specifically that they said from the creators of Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt? Like they're trying to be like, remember that?
Yeah, like
we did that too.
That's what we're known for. Don't know us for Cyberpunk. Like,
come on,
this game that we're working on.
Well, I'll earmark a nebulous spot in the future at the end of this roadmap that has no measurements on it for Adam's experience with fixed up version of Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
2077.
make sure you get a copy of that roadmap and like get like put like little notes on it. It's like, okay, on August this is where these updates were. So to make sure that the roadmap is accurate.
The last two notes on our podcast document are very, very minor. One of them is that a fan-made Pokemon-like is now getting an official release on console. Nexomon is releasing on pretty much every console on September 17th. So Nexomon, I don't know if anything about this specifically, but it was in the same vein as like Pokemon Uranium, and what was that other one that was like a Pokemon-like that really took off that ended up with a console port?
There's so many
Escaping me.
Pokemon likes that I get.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Temtem. Temtem was the one I was. So this feels like it's kind of in the same vein. This one's more pixel based. So it looks a little bit more like kind of like the original Sinnoh games a little bit. So it's getting a console release. It's already on PC and mobile, I think. So it released on Steam last July. And it released on mobile.
It released
2
on
years
mobile
ago.
like 2017. So it's not a new game really.
So that's what Pokemon Legends Arceus looks like. It looks like Nexomon. Got it.
So if you're interested in that, if you don't like the look of returning to Sinnoh and you don't want to wait for Arceus, Nexomon is coming out in a month for consoles. We also have a release date for another Chinese studio, Domo Studios' Xuan Yuan Sword 7.
Technically a
Long
Taiwanese
running.
studio.
Oh,
How do we
Taiwanese, I
pronounce his
apologize.
name?
How do you pronounce his name? Shanwan?
Which one?
The
Here, I'll type it out for you.
yeah. You don't want to. I'm really bad at
Xuan
pronouncing
Yuan
names.
Sword.
Xuan Yuan. Okay.
I'm thinking like I don't know. I'm trying to see this in like the letters. I would much better if they gave me the letters.
Yeah, we don't
Like
we don't have the
characters.
characters for it. We only have the but yeah, long running RPG series that I actually don't know like how many of these have like at what point these started getting English releases. But we have a release date for September 30th for Xuan Yuan Sword 7 for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. It originally released on PC last year. So this is another kind of console version of an existing PC game. I saw like one person that's a mutual on Twitter like really talking up this game and released on PC, and that was it. Otherwise, it didn't really seem like it made much of a splash. But hey, maybe it's a diamond in the rough. It looks interesting enough. Action RPG looks a little stiff.
I just don't want to be rude and be like Xuan Yuan or like completely wrong
Yeah,
pronunciation.
it's not like back like in Dynasty Warriors 3 when Koei didn't really like do their research in the pronunciations of names. So you have a name like a CAO. That's pronounced like the proper pronunciation would be Cao. But then in the actual dub for Dynasty Warriors 3,
Cao?
you call him Cao. Yeah, you call him Cao in it. It's like
Oh.
and like I didn't know any better. I was like a kid. I was like, I just thought that's how you pronounced it. I'm like,
Yeah, I think we're right on this. I think we got the pronunciation right.
okay.
'Cause I'm thinking in Cantonese terms, right? Because everything in like a Chinese product is always written in like the Mandarin pinyin, right? So
Okay, so what is the name again? Just to clarify.
Chuan
Xuan Yuan
Okay.
Sword 7. So the series has been going, I guess, since 1990. And like Xuan Yuan Sword 6 was in 2013, so it's actually been a while. It had a few spin-offs. I presume most of these never came to English, but I did see like one person in particular say that this game was surprisingly good and under the radar when it released on PC last year. So maybe there's something there. And now it'll also have a console release. So
I do know the Steam release of this game. It's got mixed reviews. You know,
So
whatever that means. So, like,
a little tidbit since we're on this topic. Like several of my friends have been playing this battle royale game called Super Mecha Champions, and it's like I think Chinese. It's very big in China, from my understanding. In the chat feature in that game, you can actually do like a voice chat. Like you say something and you can send it as a chat message, and it'll auto translate what you said into Chinese, transliterate it into Chinese in the chat. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's actually accurate?
Hell no, probably not.
Wow.
that actually kind of reminds me. We didn't talk about it, but NCSoft announced Lineage W, which is a mobile MMORPG.
Mhm.
And they are boasting this AI-driven, like real-time translation things, where they say if you're playing with English people speaking with Korean speaking people, you can just type it and it'll like translate it for them, like
That's
AI.
crazy.
Like it's cool if it works, but does it work?
I really wonder if that's like the next like step in like kind of bridging communications worldwide. Is like you're gonna try to like work on AI based communication like that. That's insane to think about.
Well, I think that's what people have been using, like emotes and stuff, or in Final Fantasy terms, where they just have everything like
Yeah, like
emotes.
custom messages, like preset messages, but they're already translated, right? Like in FF14.
Yeah, I ran into that in Final Fantasy 11, and it's also in Final Fantasy 14, where they have like these phrases that you pick the phrase, and then whatever language person reading it is playing in, that's what they see the phrase in. So
Yeah.
kind of like
I
a
mean,
rudimentary
like,
version of that.
doesn't it
Go ahead.
build off of well, I don't know. I was just thinking to myself because I do sometimes translate things through Google Translate for European languages and Asian languages, and for some reason, I don't know, just something about the Asian languages doesn't really seem to line up sometimes. So I'm not
It's
sure
because
if
there's a lot of context. You need the context, because if you don't have the context, it doesn't flow too well, right? It'll be like, what the hell you're trying to say? It's like, okay, how do you would say a computer in Chinese? It's electric and brain. You combine these two kanji together or hanji together, and you get computer.
But if you're translating it with a machine, you might be like,
It'll be
log
thinking, is he
into
talking
your
about
electric
electricity
brain.
and brain?
Yeah.
oh yeah, like there's been times where it's like been complete gibberish, and I'm like, what the hell is this?
So long story short, having a cool, if it works, an AI setup like that Lineage W is attempting would be kind of a breakthrough in some ways.
But
Have
speaking of
AI
NCSoft, I was gonna say about NCSoft, they're adding new stuff to Ion. Like they're completely changing content for Ion Classic, so that rewriting the story thing is actually probably true.
Wait, what? They're like changing up like
Yeah,
AI.
old content. It's like imagine you
So
like playing.
it's like new things are coming to Aeon Classic now.
Yeah, it's like imagine you messed up like WoW Cataclysm, and now you're trying to rewrite history with your classic version.
What the fuck?
I do have one more comment. NCSoft is also the publisher of Guild Wars 2, and that is also adding fishing. So there, I just figured that was relevant enough.
Eurovision.
So fishing, yeah, apparently like that is going to be the theme of late this year, early next year is.
Well, that's gonna be the best MMO now.
Yeah, if your MMO doesn't, if your game doesn't, if your RPG doesn't have fishing, like you better get on that because you're going to be left in the dust. Apparently.
Yeah.
The fact that NCSoft publishes Guild Wars, I know I'm like 15 years late to this, has always felt weird because it's like their only American.
They did also have
developer.
WildStar, which was from
Oh, they did have
Carbine in
WildStar.
Texas,
Yeah.
but then that went under. So yeah,
It's like everything NCSoft does is Korean, and then like, oh, by the way, we also own these California studio. Like, go
ArenaNet, Washington.
Yeah,
but yeah.
ArenaNet, yeah. Oh, Washington.
And that's it for the news slate. So kind of a weird mix of like the Pokemon speculation about something coming out next year, details on existing games, some sales updates, the cool interview with the NieR team from IGN Japan, and of course the Tales of Rise demo that we started with was something that we're all really looking forward to play in less than a month.
Oh God, it's less than a month.
Yeah, it is less than a month, September 10th.
3 weeks.
So thank you for listening. We do have the two features that we talked about up on the site, the Dodgeball Academia review, the new Pokemon Snap feature that James wrote up, as well as like the details that we glossed over for like Shin Megami Tensei 5 and Blue Reflection are all up there as well. You can always follow us on Twitter at RPG Site. We're also on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search for RPG Site. You'll probably find us. We also have links at the top of our homepage. Also at the top of our homepage, we do have a link to our Discord channel. So if you're interested in that, please come on by and talk about your favorite RPGs. If you talk about Madden, we'll have to kick you out. I'm sorry.
How about FIFA?
Depends. And then other than that, we'll be back next week. Until then, take care. Talk to you next time.
It just works.